Everybody, thanks for coming to our spring IMTPR meeting. I'm Dana. I'm with the Northwest Cog. I administer the IMTPR. Just a quick housekeeping items. Agendas are back there on the table by the name tag. So if you want one printed, go ahead and grab one. Also grab your name tag if you want. Restrooms are through this door that are marked as restrooms. And the Wi-Fi password is on the agenda if you can pull up the agenda. There should be a sign-in sheet that's circulating. Check your place to see if you have it. Oh, it's right, it's Brian. Okay, perfect. So if you want to circulate that around, Brian, and just make sure you check off your name. We're good to go. And then as far as mics, if you have one near you and you're not talking, make sure that it's off. And it's off, there's no light on. To turn it on, you press the button and then it's red. And then I'll also be going around with a mic when we have any discussions. So I'll do my best to like run around, but try to just project your voice so that folks online can hear us. And that's it.
Great. Thank you, Dana. Thanks for putting this together.
Oh, sure.
It's been a joy to have Dana on board, taking care of all the details, and I think we've all seen an increased level of communication. Just having her focused on some Northwest Cog, so appreciate her work. Well, welcome. We're going to have a PPR meeting, and then we're going to have a short retreat just to see where we are from a process standpoint, what we need to do to make sure that we're working well together as we start to do project planning and prioritization. But with that, we'll get more into that in a minute. I'd like to go around and just have roll call. We need to establish a quorum because today we will be voting on our bylaws and the IGA. And there are some tweaks that possibly need to make in there. So if you haven't read them, this would be a great time sometime now in the next 20 minutes to get through bylaw.
I'm Pete Rice. I'm with the city of Aspen.
Pass the mic. Might be a beacon.
I'm Pete. Hello, I'm Pete Rice. I'm with the city of Aspen, Director of Transportation.
Hi, my name is Trisha Aragon, City of Aspen. I'm David Green, City of Leadville, the mayor.
Mark Rogers, Region 3, Regional Planning Manager, CDOT.
Laura Bowman, Region 3 and District 7, new Transportation Commissioner for the state.
Jesse Spencer, CDOT Region 3, LA and Planning Support.
John Rumney, CDOT, President Engineer for Eagle and Lake None. Hi, Phil Von Hake, Multimodal Planning Liaison with CDOT.
Hi, Tess Ritchie, also multiple planning liaison for CDOT.
I'm Carol Kerr. I'm the one of the council members for the new town of Keystone.
Woohoo!
Matt Langhorst, Columbus Springs, Public Works Director.
Ryan Gordon, City Engineer for City of Columbus Springs.
Tom Cosmel, Town of Vale, Town Engineer.
Ben Curtis, County Engineer for Booker.
And one must be town engineer.
James Phelps, Public Works Director, Town of Breckenridge.
Tom Gozarowski, Public Works Director at the Town of Eagle.
Hi, David Johnson, Director of Planning for Rapid.
Brent Spahn, Public Works Director, Summit County.
Tom Doherty, Town of Sobel.
Chris McGinnis, Town of Frisco, Public Works Director and Town Engineer.
Michelle Mantier, town manager for Minturn.
Jerry Long, Town Engineer for Gibson.
Ian Martins, Public Works Director at Town of Sunhouse Village.
Sam Moreno, Transportation Director, Town of Sunhouse Village.
Travis Elliott, Town Manager in Parachute.
Matt Sher, Eagle County Commissioner.
Jacob Rivera, Town Engineer, Gibson.
Stanley Henderson, Deputy County Manager for Garfield County.
and vice chair of the TPR. Great, thank you all. If we do have some people online, could we go through them, please?
Yeah, if folks online want to say your name and the organization you're with.
Scott O'Brien, Town of Dillon, Public Works.
Vinnie Tomasulo, Community and Economic Development Director, Town of Parachute.
Erin Kellican, CDOT DTR.
Margaret Bowes, I-70 Coalition.
Jared Barnes, Planning Director, Town of Carbondale.
Eva Wilson, Avon Public Works Director.
Colin Laird, Town Trustee, Town of Carbondale.
Jeff, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, Jeff Fiedler, Lake County Commissioner.
And then Joe?
Thomas Self, Interim Public Works Director.
Hey, Joe.
Hi.
All right, that's everyone online.
Great.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Is it possible to turn that volume up a little bit? No?
All the way up. My mic's on, so.
Well, great. Thanks again.
If someone online can mute.
Sound is off.
It's good now.
I was telling Bentley, one of my pet peeves is having dual meetings.
You just need to push a button.
Thank you. For that reason, because it really somehow punishes people that show up, because we're going through all the technical difficulties. But that's the new world, so we'll deal with it. But we do need to establish a quorum, and I will look to Dana to do that.
Okay.
So on our roll call, so you don't just take your time. Go.
Okay.
But as we move through, we will be voting on the bylaws and the IGA. We will be having an update from CDOT on the I-70 scope changes and why those scope changes are necessary for Vail Pass. Sometime during the day, and just to put CDOT on notice, as you may or may not know, the reason Jason Smith, our Regional Transportation Director, is not here today is there was a bit of a bridge problem on Highway 50 between Gunnison and Montrose. So I would hope that maybe if there's any kind of update CDOT can give about that, that's an important new development that we would like to know about. Yeah, hey, Mark.
Yes.
Okay, now. Yeah, that's okay. You know what? We'll get to your main. And then, there'll be our lunchtime entertainment. And, he goes over, PPR 101. Hopefully, people that have been here a while will learn something, and people that haven't will certainly learn something about the purpose of the TPR and how we interrelate to staff and ultimately to the transportation commissioner. And then we're going to kick it to Meredith Green, who's going to run our retreat. And this is really an opportunity for you all to get to know each other a little better and make sure that we have our standards in place and rules of engagement, for lack of a better word, for us to move forward together positively. And I will say this, as you know, that what's in front of the Transportation Commission right now is a potential boundary change for the Intermountain Transportation Planning Region. We've made the decision to move forward like that isn't going to happen. If it does happen, there will be 2 TPRs, but I don't think our effort today is wasted. I think it can be used for both TPRs. And if either one wants to change it, but I think what we're doing today can be used regardless of whether there's a boundary change. I did want to welcome Carol and the county, our newest member. Maybe the newest county in Colorado.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for being this. Is there anybody from the public here? I didn't hear anybody chime in, but if there is anybody here from the public that would like to say anything right now, we're welcome to speak. All right. The next thing on our agenda is to vote on our bylaws and our IGA. So this will be a formal vote. When the Bentley, Dana, Ben, and myself met, we kind of went through what CDOT had proposed as a template for the bylaws and made modifications based on the uniqueness of the Intermountain region. We highlighted some areas that we changed and we would like to have your comments on, but most of it's pretty boilerplate and we didn't make a lot of changes. But if you look at page 3, under Article 5, under meeting, voting, and quorums, we do need to establish exactly what our quorum is. Currently, we're working on 50% plus 1, which with 30 voting members, which we have here, would be 16 people. So as you can see, we have that. In fact, we have everybody today. So, but I'd like to have that established. The thing to think about there are we want to make sure that we have enough presence of people that it's representative of the TPR, but it doesn't hamstring us from making decisions. So the lower the quorum number, the easier it is to make decisions. The higher the quorum number, the more representation. So, David.
Quickly on that, the good thing that we want to assign a certain number of board members. I would propose make it reviewed by percentage because it also looks like in the bylaws that the numbers may come and go.
Yes.
So.
And we can do that. So yes, it is represented that way. We can do a percentage. Thank you. That's good input.
Question a little earlier on. Being part of the commission.
Can you put your mic on?
They talked about being part. Membership. Is that something that's done in the other stores?
It does say that. I don't know that CDOT has a vote. I don't think that.
That's right. They don't have a vote.
Members, but I think they're present and as part of the TPR, but they don't have a vote.
Well, the interesting thing about these, Tom, is that they came from CDOT, and Brian alluded to it in the context of that Senate bill where we were going to try to redo the governance. That's kind of part of the reason we're looking at both the MOU and the bylaws is to clean all this up. And so this was delivered to us. We didn't start from a blank slate to build this.
But member
Oh. Yes, so, no, go ahead.
Okay, point out under Article 2, it does state that is a. Don, thanks for bringing this up. It's caught my eye as well. I didn't know if this was sort of a new requirement for TPRs or not. Historically, we haven't had CDOT as a voting member, but it is an important topic. Under 2A, it states the members of the commission shall include the Colorado Department of Transportation.
I'm looking to Mark just because I was always under the impression we were not a voting member, but we're part of our team.
I'm waiting till not stung here, but I am waiting until I guess you asked me. So there was in the bylaws, some PPRs have agreed to have the RPD as a potential voting member. I talked to Jason Smith, that is not a desire for HMP. One of the things I want to talk about in the presentation is really kind of looking at the TPR as I've always looked at it, and if that's the way it's very much cooperative to efforts. Yes, I've always felt these are your decisions. This is not something that CDOT, the things that we bring to you as a decision, we want your decision to help us in making priority decisions and other decisions. We will also bring in items of interest to you that really aren't decisions. We want you to be interested, want to be knowing what's going on. And that's kind of the direction I've always looked at. I told early on in my career, wait till the TPR stuff they can make a decision on, don't treat them like a rubber stamp, but tell them the things they need to know. I've treated them my whole career, and I think that's what I still look at.
Thanks, Mark. That's a good point, and I think if we can wordsmith this a little bit, I didn't want to spend a lot of time doing it, but this is an important issue because it is confusing. So I just put a parenthetical behind CDOT, which says as a non-voting member. So it's good to get clarity, absolutely, and because that's what all of our thoughts.
I think that's great, and to point out, it looks like similar language carries through Article 3 as well. So as the wordsmithing, redrafting occurs, two places this change to clarify.
Can we please identify that there are two articles? For clarification.
Yes, there's Article 3. So. Yeah, that's right.
Interesting.
They did make some changes.
We got that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think I would just suggest that the explicit choosing, not just putting it where CDOT is, having a portion that's called out to say who is and is not a voting member. Because then it does say voting member, it says member shall carry one vote. So you want to make explicit somewhere that either CDOT is not a member or that you've got member, and I think it's most appropriate. It is most customary in boards to have ex officio seats where you say ex officio non-voting. So by nature of so CDOT has a seat. We want them there, but it's non-voting. Make that list about who is voting and who's not voting. Call it out rather than trying to put it.
Thank you. Well, let's do it this way. We'll clarify this throughout that document. I think we're all on the same page with regard to it.
Oriented about this.
No, it's important.
Under Article 4 about officers, I think it prudent to state that the officers must be a voting member of the committee.
The designated voting member?
Well, to just be one officer, you must be a voting.
Okay.
Doesn't really list a qualification.
It does say the chair shall be voting. Vice chair. Yeah, all officers. I agree.
Any opposition to that, Gene? All right, you make that make sense. We'll keep rolling down then through the one Article 4. Yeah, Cheryl. Okay.
That was something we wanted to have a discussion around. Quite frankly, to determine whether or not we felt that in-person action was necessary to be able to make decisions.
What do you think, Cheryl? You brought it up. Which means. Okay.
I agree. I think given what we've all experienced with winter storms and canyon closures and wildfires, it makes sense to allow virtual attendance. Voting via virtual attendance.
Any opposition to that? Yeah.
I don't have just a comment. The DPRs, in particular, have already stated they're going to do all virtual except one mandatory year. So I don't know if this goes back to help that meeting some issues. But they, you know, just in dealing with this type of thing, just because the distance travel. So yeah, that's just throwing that out there. I need an opinion. It's just, well,
I like in-person meeting, I think we get so much done.
I agree. 100%.
Yeah, so I would hope that all these in-person, also, whenever we have meetings.
So maybe the language for voting would be something to the effect that a quorum may be achieved both in person and virtually. That way you define a quorum, whoever's around can participate.
That, yes.
No, I agree with that. I have a question.
Right, but good, go ahead.
Going back to the officer section, that confuses me a little bit. A says the officers, the chair and vice chair, then it says each officer shall serve a year, sort of term of 2 years, but then we're nominating them every single year. It says annually down below there, so
Yeah.
times.
I
I don't care how many times you read these. We read through this.
Yeah. Can we hold on because we got something with the is because Bentley and I put the 2 years in there just because 1 year, you're just getting your feet on the ground. I don't understand what your second year can actually be effective. So I wanted to just throw that out there. Originally, it was the reason this was written these ways, it was every year. Yeah.
Right, are there any
2 year terms.
Are there any staggered ones so that you might have different ones on different years, or always every other years for everything?
Or voting for the chair and vice chair?
So that's the only thing we'd be voting.
Yes. Yeah. So every other. We're okay with that, yes. Oh, RPC, so this is yes, so there's the regional transportation planning region, which is the geographic definition. Then there's the Intermountain Regional Planning Commission, which is you all, and they are used interchangeably. So, but I think we've got to clarify that in the document. Mark?
Yeah. And very well stated, the RPC is the geographic location, EPR is the representative.
No, but it's, yeah, actually the opposite.
So on top of the second page, a minimum. That's each. So region. So now it's made up of 30 to 45. So it's like 80.
No. So there's only two.
There's two.
There's Rapto, and then we have.
Eco.
Eco balance. They're just setting off.
Because the others are different county departments.
That's the answer to the question.
All right. Good, right, this is good clarity, even if we don't make sure.
Follow Tom's lead and say, like, when we take it, we encourage, because we build it with the next. You need to think of something.
And of the chair or vice chair?
Yeah, you know, this. Can you take that?
Stan, I'm assuming you're keeping these.
Yeah, I'm taking notes. So we want to do an in-person vote of the
No,
chair.
It's the very end.
Okay.
Just to clarify, when.
It's 2 years.
Oh, I understand. That's a good point. We can put that in there, this is your bio.
The Nick Ireland.
Thank you, I appreciate that so much because the knowledge that comes from the TPR meets that strengthens your TPR. I very trying to rein in a lot of opinions on, but I will state that being apparently actually.
I would agree.
I think it'd be stating that they're considered a limitation. Okay. With no term limits.
Cool.
Five, yeah, for just one moment, for clarity purposes, voting is something who does it among those. That's what we do. Can those be changed to vote first?
Well, what we decided is we're going to allow a quorum to be established either in person or remotely. That quorum,
But she's saying who's voting, so voting shall be conducted only among those voting members.
oh, I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
Voting. Got it.
Did we define? I know it came up, but
We haven't gotten there. Okay. We're working. We're keeping the budget. But these are all, these are great. Thank you, Michelle. You do have to be detail oriented. We're gonna live with these. We want to do this again.
To come back to the point we touched on about whether the transit authority, transportation authority members. I don't think Article 2 defines those agencies. It's I think that's something we should discuss. And, you know, distinction being between transit authority and transit operators.
Yeah.
So I would say I'm in supportive and in favor of the authority being voting. It suggests that we make them.
So within that paragraph A on the second Article 2, each transit authority within the TPR are voting.
Sorry, I was reading those for the wrong article too.
Okay, all right. Right.
Oops.
Sure. That's, there you go. Great overview. Right. So what would you like to see representation? Again, the easiest quorum to meet would be 50% plus one. I'm with that. Okay, so there's a proposal for 50% plus. Is there anybody that disagrees with that? Abstain. Thank you. Yes. No.
Oh, we're done.
Okay. It's not designated as a stagger. I mean,
I would think though that probably those people are coming from within already having been here, so not new necessarily. And then if you're staggering, then it makes it a little awkward that say a vice might become a chair because they're off stagger. And then you'd have to end up appointing anyway.
And I'm for not having too many votes. Doing it once every 2 years is
Yeah.
good.
the standard was 1 year, and we made it 2 years. So.
Do you want to say every 2 years, odd or even numbered years? Because if there's a retirement and then it's replaced, is it 2 years from when that new vote happened? Or does the term start then, or is it, if you understand?
Yeah, I do understand.
So maybe we want to define which, like, it happens, even numbered years or something like that.
Good at that. We'll go even, sounds better than.
I did want to suggest that we put a provision in there that Brian is appointed to a life term.
Yeah. All right. And we can go back. With the time to get everything dialed in. We added completely letter G under Article 5. And the purpose of that was to give us flexibility to approve documents like the signed grant letters of support in the back. So rather than having to go to a vote and counting the votes, it gives us as an administration some flexibility for things that are kind of obvious. We would want to support a grant, but I will say, based on the wording, and I want to make sure it's clear to you, the membership would have an opportunity to say, hey, I don't agree with that. But if no one says, hey, I don't agree with that, we're going to, that makes sense. It's an informed consent process rather than actual saying yes.
So a single person objecting would force it to a vote.
Correct. Correct. We've done that many times. Any opposition with that? Right. We'll keep rolling.
Brian, I'm
yeah.
sorry, I do have one question on Article 5. Section D says each member shall carry one vote, either in person or via email. So I'm sure what voting via email. I don't know if that's to accommodate virtual attendance, but.
And that would have to, I think, he's clarifying.
Yeah.
Because that implies proxy, kind of, right?
But it does, there's no preference.
Yeah, I think we could eliminate email and not just virtually. Thinking about the informed consent, but that's not actually voting, that's saying, hey, the objective is moving forward, and then we would take the vote. So that is,
You get to say present, you are defining present as either in person or virtual. Present is. Please.
thank you.
I think the only time we had done via email was when we voted for the chair and the vice chair. Just because we weren't doing open, an anonymous vote. If I remember when the last time we voted for a chair, we did it via email for those. That was the only time I could see that coming up, because otherwise it's just roll.
So what I'm hearing, we may not want to eliminate.
We may want to leave an option to do email if there's an anonymous vote. I don't, that needs to be declared in there, but. I think that doing the chair vote as an anonymous vote made sense, but I don't know that. I think that's why it's in.
Right, just say each member of the commission shall carry one vote, period.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree with that. Did you get that?
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, I got a G question, sorry. Not opposed to it. Are we setting up how these meetings are run with these bylaws? Because if you have the beginning of the meeting, like one council meeting where the public is allowed to say something, if you don't allow that, but you vote on something. Through an email process, whether you consider it non-controversial, to make that determination. Should we have like how a meeting is actually run in here? Who's in charge? Is there a public input time? Blah, 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 blah. That thought process is, okay, if you allow public input, then G doesn't. We're making a decision.
Yes, and I don't know that I have a clear answer for you. I would rather not get into putting all of it, idiosyncrasies of running a meeting.
Yeah.
That was just, but I get your point. I get your point.
The G's not a standard vote. It's allowing a veto of an action. Which isn't a voting veto, it's just a. Yeah.
You're thinking non-monetary stuff with that mainly, right? You're taking like, if you want to take a position on something, you're asked for advocacy or whatever, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think if it's in our bylaws and we have it stated, I'm not concerned about public input. But that's just me. So if we can put language in there that clarifies it and protects us, then. Good.
So. Are there decisions that we need to make?
Yes. They're typically in supporting grant applications, things that we want to do anyway, and we have never really had any opposition. So that's where it means.
That are routinely up against the time.
Yes, right. Well, that,
Via the email.
yeah, so the email says, does anybody oppose this? And if you do, we're gonna bring it to a vote. And we would conduct a meeting then to vote. But if there's no opposition, that would indicate to us it's pretty non-controversial and everybody supports it.
There might be two things in there I'd suggest. One is to say that the chair determines is a non-controversial. So it gives the chair authority to make that determination and do it. Everybody through the process has the ability to say no. And then also put a time. At least 72 hours,
Yes,
72 business hours.
at least because we made one.
And it could be a longer time too. I'm just suggesting one.
I like both of those, and we typically do that anyway. Like we need to hear from you by the business on Fridays. We can make sure that there's good duration there.
Plenty of time to move them.
Again, these are usually not.
Going to get email to this group. We need to post it on the website or something. I'll let them know that as well.
That would cover, well, that may cover what Matt's alluding to, which is.
Closely be intent.
Yeah. Well.
Terry, so there's time when it's got reauthorization and Region 3 got like $15-16 Marine Creek Bridge was the rate of like 7. And at the time, we needed to make a decision, it might be a fast and decision. Money, but still, our game time wanted people to not be able to get concluded, so we thought and we did it basically over the phone, this is 15, 16 years ago. And said, okay, that's what we do, we have consent, so again, it's informal, it wasn't getting voted on. It's like, yeah, we have consent, and that was their chairs. And sometimes those decisions are made, then we, oh, yeah. Now, again, it wasn't even about that we would have taken this, these are, again, we'll get into and talk about various photos, including, you know, sometimes when you talk about monetary, having that on the website. Yeah, it just may change the way we do things, we may not. It's just change things.
Can we add that it would? Well, I was just gonna say, Dana, can we add that the posting would be made on the website during that duration?
For the.
Yes.
Yep.
What else? Connors.
Going all the way to the end, Article 9 about the amendment states that the bylaw can be amended by the majority of representatives present. Well, essentially, you get a situation where a number of the members change the bylaws. I that doesn't feel quite right. I think we may say a majority of the members. Let's go. Yes, so we have at least half of the members vote.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering why it's different than just having the forum vote. I didn't be stating it different.
Well, the forum versus federal membership is a vote. And I'm going to make you 2/3 requirements. Okay, then I can.
For Brian, my thought was that changing of the bylaws to be a
vote. That we want a greater participation in.
I mean, what you're proposing.
Well, if you're, the majority of members really showed up and participated.
It's right, the way it's written, it could be a quarter of the entire membership.
Understood. I think I wonder why. Because. I mean, it only makes sense to me that you read your bylaws based on your voting membership and your forums. I just wonder why that needs to be. But, Dana, can we make that a change is that basically we're honoring the quorum in the change of the bylaws, but it doesn't.
Well, I think you could just say these bylaws may be amended by an affirmative vote of the majority of the membership.
Yeah, because at least maybe I'm thinking about this incorrectly, but if the quorum is 50%. Plus one, and then of the quorum, 50% can vote to change the bylaws, that's in fact a quarter of the membership, which is I'm concerned. I think the way Matt raised it is would be the best way to write this.
So higher level.
I think the other option to address that concern would be amendment to the bylaws requires a supermajority. That's easier or worse, but.
Be more difficult for sure, but that may be.
The supermajority of the quorum that you have established at any meeting.
We just go half of it.
Let's go less than half.
Maybe with half of the living. Well,
One word,
sure.
This is the chair of an Article 5, they call special meeting outside the chamber. It's 7 days notice. And then when you go down to G, if there's an opposition and you need to call a meeting, you have that 72-hour. You know, when it's very, it might be. They ought to be the same.
It should be the same.
So we're changing change B to 72 hours, Tom, is that kind of what your thought was? Yeah, they're changing the other one to 7 days, yeah.
It is not a meeting.
No, but if you have an.
Oh,
No, but if there's opposition to the letter,
I would suggest doing 72 for both, just because we need a letter of support. You generally need it quick. So if you had to, if there was opposition, you had to have the special meeting.
well,
Quick is what you're going.
and the beauty of allowing for a quorum to be done remotely, nobody has to travel anywhere to meet that 72 hours. Or you don't necessarily have to travel anywhere to meet that 72 hours.
It allows us to be more nimble for a quick response. So 72 hours on the letter B. Right. Wait, no? Yeah.
I would make sure you go through this with your ADA compliancy a little bit and make sure you're acting.
Okay.
That's there. Fine, so they actually. We don't.
Okay.
So, I have one more. You said, it would make the photo, technical cabinet, check the body, the court. Is that always gonna be the case?
It may not.
And could we just put in there that we will find administrative support? I don't know how to say that, but.
Yeah.
I mean, it may or may not be Northwest. I'm just saying that if we define that in.
It may not need to be there at all. Yeah, so can we just eliminate that thing? Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense to me. We don't-
Can it define how you notice or where you notice or post?
The only thing that we've spoken of is to post things on the website. But I don't think it's overtly stated as a generality. We could do that. It's really not because we don't have a physical location. Right.
We're going to follow the patient forward or just follow the water?
I think we have to designate a posting. It's-
But you may not have to designate that in bylaws.
Right.
So to that point, you just say postings will comply with CRS, blah, 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 and then posting location. Can be found, we always have that website, you might just say. Posting location.
But the women, you have to call it out. You have to call it out. I don't think.
The local governments.
Website.
Brian, Jump in this, let's be reviewed on some state attorney.
Sure. I don't think so. See that. Well, they have it.
They got legal, that's
So I do think we ought to have something in there saying the PPR website will be the designation for all. public
Okay.
notices. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Anything? People online, I know this may have been hard to follow for you, it's good to hear all the comments, but any comments about the bylaws?
None.
Okay. Well, we've made a bunch of changes here, but I think without having to write another document, pass it out. You feel like you understand the changes we've made and are capable of voting on them? If you don't, then it's time to stay. Get clear.
So without, if anybody objects, we'll have a special meeting.
Within 72 hours. Is there a motion? For the bylaw? As a meeting. Thank you, Tom. Is there a second? Thank you, Tom. Any further discussion about the bylaws as amended?
What was who is Tom the second? Thank you.
We could go around and take a formal vote, or we can ask the contrary, which is, does anybody oppose the motion on the floor? Hearing none, the bylaws passed unanimously. Thank you. That was great. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, and we do have a quorum, like well over a quorum, so we're good.
Now, the IGA, this is interesting because we currently have one. Do we need another one? Or can the town of Keystone opt into our existing IGA? I'm asking, I don't know the answer to this question.
Was it changing this not part of that governance conversation that was a result of Senate Bill 1101? Senate Bill?
That's right. And I guess what I'm getting at is we may not need to vote on this if it's got to go to all the entities anyway for approval. Because it would seem redundant to vote on it here and then go, okay, now take it back to your councils and get them delivered. So you get my point.
And Brian, given the change, the boundary is going to occur, that's another kind of complexity to this. I think it's worth some discussion about the language and change it. For each of us to actually take this back to our elected bodies for a vote, I would feel better about doing that. The outcome of.
Yeah.
What, does anybody know what else is planning to lie?
And do we need to do this quickly?
No, I don't think we do, right? You know, the bylaws are important because that the governs us. The IGA are the on the deed. And I didn't know that.
Now.
Well, could we do like, you know?
Yeah.
The word is.
I think it probably makes sense to get these in process because everyone's gonna have to go to their own councils. So we could set a deadline as far as like when we want them to be approved, like end of the year. Does that make sense? September.
That may be. So I think we can, let's just include them as we get the IDA, completed and approved. So just we'll go to them. So if does anybody have any changes, that's this question to the IGA as written. And again, this is a formality for people to opt in and be part of the TPR.
Or perhaps reference the line on.
That's a good. We'll do that.
Yeah, because I think this critical piece here is we want to not amend this IGA as the. Saying that correctly, want to not mess with this because of the nature of what it takes to change it. Going back to every representative jurisdiction, huge.
Also, our next meeting is in July. I'm like way far into the year, sorry. July 19th.
Is that too quick to turn this around with your council? Okay. Okay. What's the date again?
July 19th.
July 19th. So that's, everyone please attempt to get the IGA approved by your elected officials by July 19th. Including.
Yeah. So.
I think we'll know. I think Barbara, can you? Okay.
I think, let's ask her.
Until July. That's great. Earlier the better.
Brian, I think with the drafting changes to the IGA, we can distribute that out to all these. I think that's good. Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I did.
Can you speak up?
You go back.
Okay. In the IGA. Yeah. Thank you. Get that thing. We have a name?
So, Tanya, is that the legal name then? Eagle Valley Transportation Authority? Okay, and it will be when you take this to get it approved? Okay.
Any other final comments? Okay. Before we have the Westville Pass project update, is there a short update with regard to the bridge? on Highway 50? Okay, that'd be great. Thank you, Barbara. And if Jason calls, this will open up the meeting. I'd love to get the update from Jason.
Which side of Gunnison is that on?
Either west side.
Between Montrose and Gunnison. That's on the best way to put it. Okay. Yeah, and so part of the cleanup here was to, because we just had kind of people coming and going fast, saying, hey, I represent Eagle County now. And there was no authorization given, so we're trying to update the list of the primary and secondary voting members of the TPR. So Dana has made an attempt to do that. If you haven't updated your primary and secondary with her, please do that, because we need to have that list complete. And we'll try to keep it updated more thoroughly as we move forward. So, you know, a couple people able to represent their jurisdiction.
Will there need to be an official document that gets submitted, or is it this that somebody can say, Brian retired and now I'm the guy?
I think we decided that when Brian retired, being the guy. It doesn't require the elected officials to bless the new guy. So,
Do we want Dana to hand that sheet back around? We can write them in.
Yeah.
Because there, some of them are in there. And some
Yes.
aren't.
yes, so
Yeah.
do a quick look. We'll pass that document, make sure it's accurate.
Get that back to me, because that's my attendance, like, don't let it get lost.
Once you do that, I think we talked about that. Just have an official document. But. Right, okay. Okay.
Anything.
That's fine. So there are people here that don't know anything about it. Mark, can you just say what the bird and how it is?
So, I don't know if you know, first off, the bridge over Blue Mesa, the big long one over the middle, that is closed. So now you know where. It's on US 50. And we've been watching some things with it for a while. We do annual inspections all the time. So when they say, you know, we've been watching, yeah, bridges, it's fun talking to a room full of engineers. You know, so just don't quote me on some things, because I'm not. They've been watching them, we do annual inspections. They notice the things and visually things have worsened more than they expected, and so they but that's that stuff that I unfortunately we're able to get to be sort of announcement out warning, so it just seems very sudden. It is very sudden to close it. So yeah, the detour for Gunnison to Montrose is significant. If you already know kind of direction, kind of so significant. But getting the word out right now is important, especially for 24. Because that would be a protection for you guys. 160, back for the other side. The other thing is, even on county roads, you know, I'm talking to people who understand closures. When Linwood is closed, Cottonwood Pass, as you guys know, sometimes that's even a worse situation. The Lake City cutoff is still snowed in. And then there's environmental restrictions on it as well. So they're working very hard to Gunnison County and the dogs very hard to open it for local traffic only, because that road. So yeah, so all these little routing things with Google Maps and other things we're trying to do. There's down there is, we only really encourage alternate routes on the state system. And so that's what we can see. We even I can't, you still have a lot of snow, so no. So that's all the updates we will have. Guys, and others informing people. Just trying to make sure safety.
We have a person
Thanks, Mark. All right. The next agenda item is Bill Pass project. This is the project that came in over budget, and there were some scope changes to keep the project moving forward. And I think partners in Vale and Eagle County area are interested in hearing what those scope changes were and move forward. So I don't know, this is a thing for, but John, can you?
Yeah, I'm telling, you do have to provide this is the dating.
Okay. Dana? We're ahead of schedule. So if we need to take a break, we could take a 5-minute break and be, let's do that. So take 5 minutes and, come on back. So.
Warn me about.
John's presentation and the.
Thanks. Yeah. Say it again.
We start running hot where I need to start, I need to go on soon and run.
Okay,
I can be
cool. Well, we're ahead of schedule by 5 minutes.
Which 5 minutes.
Yeah, I'm very actually. Yeah.
It's a lot of discussion of the bylaws. It's like interesting listening to everything. And I'm taking a little bit of a difference in our goals and setting, so we'll see how it plays.
Okay, I think that's fine. I don't think this works well for people on Zoom, but we told people to come in person. It is, and it's just like, I don't know what else to do.
Well, and I'm gonna talk about that with the survey findings. Do a discussion about the hybrid option, which is what he said was a slur, but also emphasizing the importance of
Connecting.
and you need to be.
Yeah, it's
Or
a
at least in the
connection
breakfast.
point, and I think we've heard from people,
Right.
this is important because we get more things done when we aren't. in person.
Exactly. And everyone seems to be, I'm really enjoying like the respectful.
It's a great
communication.
group.
I know, I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm impressed. This group so far.
Yeah, it's good, and I think people want to participate, people want to make this worth their time.
Yeah. So I don't have it. Here. Well, one of the things that came up in survey that I should that's. Take this idea a little bit. I was doing regional coordination committee.
Uh-huh.
There was the COG.
Yeah.
We have. Each time. Well, Eagle County. It's like.
We usually do it in April, but we change it. Folks in Gypsum. We have great stuff. When you're making person about town, like, you know,
But I think it's a good discussion point. It's like, what are our expenses?
exactly. I need to, hey, how's it going? Great.
Yeah.
Do you remember who designed was it the 2020 plan? The 2020 plan,
It's the 20.
the 2020 prioritization.
For coordinated public transit,
For what?
coordinated public transit, human services transportation plan update.
Hmm.
It's CDOT branded, but it seems,
Did you ask Mark?
Not yet.
Yeah, Mark.
it's really nice.
Okay.
I'm not saying CDOT.
I'll ask.
It's too nice. Yeah. I was like, yeah, it's
Let me
together.
ask Mark.
Hold on. So it's only Dana enough to on it. It's not really, it's very good together.
There it is.
All, are you watching?
That's okay. I can sort of. It was just, they hired a consult. And it should be on the bottom of the 2024.
So
Muted here.
There's one for design, the other one, for the construction aspect, and then Karen was the project director. Since then, Karen got promoted, and the gentleman who was running the construction side, he left CDOT. And so now I'm ultimately responsible for the design and the construction of the aspect. So, thank you. So, next slide, please.
Sorry. There we go.
Thank you. So what I have today is just a quick background on the scope of the project, the premise of the project, and then I could get into, of course, what everybody's wondering, it's the modifications to the scope of the project. In 2011, programmatic environmental impact statement for the I-70 corridor was completed. And that ultimate goal of the PEIS was to have more reliable, consistent travel times between the mountains and Denver. And Vail Pass was noted in that as a safety improvement project. And the primary scope of that project is to add a third lane up and down Vail Pass from East Vail interchange to the Vail Pass rest area. As we got into the project, we actually wound up changing the name from the auxiliary lane project to the safety and operations project, because it became very apparent that there was other aspects related to safety that we considered operational that we could add in and fix. So some other scope items in the EA, the overall 10-mile EA, is adjusting some of the curves, smoothing the curves, say straightening the road down. Not a lot of room to make it straighter, but the curves in red on the screen are rated anywhere between 45 to 60 miles an hour. And so they're not a 65 mile an hour curve. So they coincidentally both, not only are they, you can say substandard, but they also have a high crash rate associated with those. So straightening those out became part of the scope, as well as some of the operational improvements revolving around tractor trailer trucks, like expanding truck parking, fixing the runaway truck ramps, and adding in or expanding the chain station there as well. And Dana, you can go to the next slide, please. So we finished the EA, got all the signatures on it in January of 2021, but prior to the completion of the EA, we applied for an infra grant. State was awarded about $60 million from the feds, and then we had a match up to $140 million at the time. And the scope of the infra grant project involves installing a third lane only in the eastbound uphill direction, about halfway up Vail Pass, just including it at the highest range. So Mount is 185, 90. It also included straightening out two of the curves of Vail Pass, 186, 188, which coincidentally have the highest crash rate on I-70 in all of Colorado. We awarded the grant in 2021. Then next slide, please, David.
Sorry, there's a delay.
So we then started construction. We had an early action package, started construction right away in 2021. And that was to straighten out the lower runaway truck ramp. We continued construction on in 2022. We had to get a good portion of the bike path out of the way to make room for the third. And that's primarily in that area, the drive up Vail Pass and the bike path, which was literally 8 feet off the edge of asphalt. So we've completed that, we got it out of the way. So then through 2022 and 2023, we replaced the westbound downhill bridge, which was a scope addition to the project. And that one is also coincidentally, we straightened the curve out for a lower, because it was a substandard curve there as well. And now moving forward into this summer's construction through all of 2026. We awarded several weeks ago to our construction management and contracting team, Hewitt, our contractor. Re-awarded the eastbound bridge, so going in the uphill direction there, we're going to replace that bridge. Because if you notice, there's 3 bridges there right now. So we got to tear down the bridge in the middle, then build a new one in its place. It's going to have a much smoother, wider curve as well. And just yesterday afternoon, we completed our negotiations for the remainder of the budget, the remainder of the scope of the project as well. And this is the reduced scope of the project. So what we can afford with the money we have moves down to the Benny, is to build the auxiliary lane starting from about milepost 187.3 to 190. So that's gonna leave about a 1.8 mile gap to be filled in the future. So we did call it a scope reduction. It's also partially a phased implementation, waiting for additional funding to come on. So of course, with this scope of the project that we're including, it comes with all the mitigation that's required from environmental assessment. So that mitigation's like water quality, sediment control, wildlife fencing, wildlife underpasses, and of course, all the aesthetic requirements that came as well with that. Next slide. So our challenges with the costs. So this is like I said, this is the second time, or it's the second time I've given this presentation. And before we had taken this, we're just drawn in our own line where we said, hey, here's where inflation has affected our project. It might be a little hard to see in here, but leading up to the point when we put our estimate together for the infra grant and provide the Colorado's construction cost index, which is essentially a measure of localized inflation tracked by our engineering estimates and marketing analysis group, which is EMA. Just learned that acronym, and I think they're going to change the name. But they put together this report annually and present it to the chief engineer. So the green line here represents the same report that the chief engineer sees. So leading up to our, so the construction cost index is a measure of the inflationary prices associated with major bid items like asphalt, concrete, and those costs were growing at a rate of about 3.5% a year, leading it right up until about COVID. Since COVID, they have now grown and inflated in Colorado. This is statewide, not just Bell Pass, at a rate of almost 25%. We even removed the arrows, not the right spot, but there's that wild peak up there. We removed that outlier from the calculation. So since we put together our estimate, the inflation we've seen here in Colorado has been almost 25%. Now, predicting tomorrow and what happens tomorrow is a challenge without a crystal ball. But the way that you would predict inflationary rate for tomorrow is to continuously re-index your inflationary rate. So you would calculate it out over, say, 10 to 20 years or something. So that current inflationary rate is 8% 2012 to next slide.
Can you just, the green and the red, are those general trend lines and the blue is actual?
Yeah, sure, we can go back to that.
Hold on, it's very slow. There you go.
So the red lines on the screen, so starting from the left, you have a flatter one. That's the average, right? That's the trend line, the regressional analysis on the actual data. The blue line that spikes and valleys is the actual data quarterly. So times years. So the two red lines, the one on our left represents the flatter 3.5% inflation. The big red arrow is where we put our estimate together, and I think just in translation it's supposed to be left. The next red line is, of course, a steeper 25%. The green line representing 8%. The regression, the average of the data system. That answers your question.
Thank you.
Next slide.
Come on.
So some of the other factors that have affected us, so they're more related to the mountain. And actually, after meeting with our EMA representative, there are statewide as well. Just the availability of materials and labor. So we took the project out for low bid twice. And then we've now gone back to our partner Kiewit, which is more of a partnership, working with the contractor. And we heard the same story from Kiewit, heard the same story from the low bidders, because I interviewed the low bidders after each attempt to advertise before the project, say, hey, what was the issue? What were the challenges that you encountered? So the labor shortage is a statewide issue. Bidding a project anywhere outside of the city, you run into challenges with just getting people to show up. The economy in Colorado is great. And we had assumed it was localized mountains, but it's not. It's a statewide issue. And our EMA representative thinks that this is one of the major drivers of inflation. Construction. Some of the challenges with local competition, about availability of asphalt and aggregates. So this last construction activation that we just negotiated the price on to add this third lane in has about $14 million worth of asphalt. And we're gonna save $1 million driving our asphalt up to the mountains. So even with our crazy high, sorry, I shouldn't embellish the secret, but even with our high labor and trucking costs, we're gonna save money driving asphalt. The labor and trucking shortages, same story from bidders as Hewitt. They're bringing in trucks and truck drivers from the state. I think. Next slide. So it's not for lack of trying. We, of course, the project team, myself, is a huge public benefits project. We want to deliver as much of the project as we can. The overall estimate for the project right now is $385 million. Over the course of these past several years, we identified 57 innovations that are valued $69 million. A couple of those that are notable. It turns out the Vail Pass Rest Area project was coincidental timing of ours. Our project needs to export dirt from the research property. Our total export, I think at one point was 100,000 cubic yards, but the rest area needed 30,000 cubic yards of dirt. So a huge savings to the taxpayers in general for us to just drive all the dirt we needed right next door to the pass right to the rest area to help them build their parking there. We've also had a partnership with the Forest Service for our landscaping. I have an order of about 7,500 trees coming in this spring. They're seedlings, very big, but they're 90 cents a piece. And that deal isn't available to the general public. It's only for other government entities that buy trees. I'm not 100% on this, but I think they gather the seeds either from Vail Pass or they didn't gather from Vail Pass, they gather the seeds from other high elevation areas. There's another one that's not up here that we haven't advertised too much. Wasn't sure if we could have enough to build a parking lot for the Forest Service. Bighorn Creek parking lot. There's some safety issues there identified by the Forest Service. But the interactions between bicyclists and people parking. So the additional savings and increased productivity of the project. They need about 6,000 cubic yards to build a park down there. So we'll start building this. Next slide. So why only build a lane from 187 Freeland? Why chop that part out? Why not build the narrows, which everybody knows to be the worst part on Vail Pass? pass. So one reason, this is the best reason, but it simply fits in with the plan, the overall phase of plan. So we got 20 miles of lane there. We're gonna start at the top, down, and from the bottom, and from the up. Kind of have a couple of overlapping phases in there, make sure that we don't take any private property down. But it matches the overall, it's gonna allow us to just next time funding comes along. But the reason we chose this phasing is that it drops the lane in the most ideal location they'll pass to reduce the turbulent traffic flows. One of the safety issues on the pass is the turbulent traffic flows. So you got fast moving cars, you got slow moving tractor trailer trucks there. And we've all been, I know Tracy Santaguchi from Automotive Carriers Association's here, so I can talk about trailer trucks. But you've probably been behind the tractor trailer truck going 25 miles an hour, and then the guy behind him decides to pass because he's going 6 miles an hour. And that's the turbulent traffic flow. So by dropping the lane at the Bell Rest area, you've now come over the crest of the hill, kind of start your way back down. So that's gonna allow the tractor trailer trucks to get up to speed as much as possible and have the smoothest, safest merge back from 3 lanes to 2. So if we decided that, hey, let's do 186, the merge at that point with the money we have will be on one of the steeper parts of the pass, more around like 7%. This also avoids throwaway work. With the budget we have, if you just came in and did the 2 lanes in the narrows to stretch your money out, you just build 2 lanes. If you build those 2 lanes and then you get future funding, come back and build 3rd lanes, even though you've corrected it. You just build 2 lanes, smooth out the curve in the narrows. You're gonna have some throwaway work for when you come back later to finish that. It's about 1,600 foot long by 38 foot tall. There's a good reason they didn't build it first. It's a challenge to get that. It's a large expensive. So if there's a lot of throwaway work, well, then why not just build 3 lanes? So then you you stripe it, it's 2 lanes, then the 3rd lane just sits out there. We're in a snowstorm. I've seen people, even as the configuration is now, people drive bike. There's still a tremendous benefit to the traveling public to address the curve at the 188, which I can show on the next slide. If we address the curve at the 188 and we build the 3rd lane along with it, you can get the benefit of the 3rd lane and curve correction and backwards.
Next slide, Dina.
Sorry.
So this one may be a little bit hard to see from back here, but the blue vertical lines represent all the crashes from the time we were on 2017. And I just entered this data right in from the spreadsheets, just kind of the nearest and the proposed phase includes the curve correction at 188. And during this time frame, we had 119 crashes in that area. The overall benefit to adding a 3rd lane and correcting the curves on paper is a 40% crash reduction. So with the proposed phase, we are getting a lot of bang for our buck, but it increases safety on Bell Pass. If we only focused on the narrowest part of the road, there's a crash reduction there. We have 81 crashes in the section of narrows. Then, of course, in the far left where the bridges are, which is also curve correction, there's 40 crashes during the same time period. And then that little orange squiggly line going up there, that represents the grade along I-70. So you can kind of see the lane drop at the rest area where you're already kind of starting to go downhill. Whereas if you drop the third lane in the area where it says curb correction, any crashes in that area, you'd have to drop the third down a steeper part of the pass. There is a little bit of a down, but you still have a steeper. So the point of this slide here is just to show that there's still a tremendous public benefit to this project that addresses significant safety concerns of the paths. And overall, for the most part, for the data we have, show that the curve correction of 188 has the highest crash rate on I-70 out of all of Colorado, most of the time. Sometimes it switches between 188 and 86 as the max crash rate. But of course, these numbers appear, they don't tell the whole story. You know, overall, each one of these crashes, many of them involve multiple vehicles. That's not here. So we just get, these represent what's a crash. A crash is a property damage, an injury, or a fatality that's recorded by the Colorado State Patrol. So these numbers here all represent data from the Colorado State Patrol. So some of these had like 3 car crashes, multiple car crashes, some were just singular. And this is the variety of crashes too, falls, wildlife, vehicle collisions, which we will mitigate and put it on that fence. Then every number has a story behind it. This is somebody's life-changing day, as well. But the numbers also represent all of the cars that spin out, slide off the road, that are quickly pulled off by a tow truck or a tractor trailer truck. The jackknives. If there's no property damage, the incident really isn't reported. So it's now something. I believe that's my next, that one slide left. So this is just a photo of the completed or nearly completed curve correction at 35. See the large background, so for historical and aesthetic requirements. The black strip on the right there, that's our new bridge with under radius on it. We're gonna rip out the bridge in the middle of the summer and start our new bridge right there. And the anecdotal evidence so far for a 65-mile curve on the mountain is that maintenance say no tractor trailer trucks, no jackknife material. So they are seeing a benefit. So that's what I have today. If there's any questions or anything, that's what I.
So are there any pressing questions? We do have lunch ready. We have some people, but any urgent questions for John, or we can have a dialogue during lunch?
How do they keep their temperatures of the asphalt all the way?
It's an excellent question. We have other mixes we use or mix with asphalt. So we use a lot of El Paso anyway. If we wind up doing night work, the nights are so cold, it's hard to get temperatures. There is some risk in laying the asphalt. The true savings, I think, was around $1.6 million. But as we have collaboration, some portion of the risk. So if the contractor or the state says, yeah, it's just not working out, so we'll bring the asphalt to Denver, still at almost break even or small cost, the contractor can build a new plant or in Lebanon and haul the asphalt down from there, save money, and be in charge of the trucking, or we could buy a little tape.
What was the shortfall?
That's a great question, and one that the state should answer. At the moment, the exact shortfall is is a result of not being able to remove bid, and we have not presented the information from, we don't give out the information from the low bid results if we don't. So the exact number will be confidential. It's a number that the state needs to be accountable for, needs to then.
So, and we can read right, but I know if Greg were here, he's been very involved with advocating for when we get some. And I know a lot of people are aware of how we involved in the position involved and we created a letter and sent to CDOT. There's a letter that will likely go out shortly. That it's sound Eagle County are to support to say, how can we make this project happen? Where can we find the extra money to make it? We've all dealt with the huge increase in cost of construction. And I think this is one of those significant projects that has a difference for the I-70 corridor. And it seems like one of the projects that the IMTPR should speak to, say how important this is. How do we make changes to find money, request additional grant funds from the original grant, discretionary funding, the projects that can be redirected. This has been number one. We supported it. Within TPR itself, we have Dow Junction as one, there's funding there. Is it worthwhile to leave some of that money to get Belfast going? But I think it's a really big important issue. We aren't able to tackle it now. You can see the construction, maybe your original bid last year, maybe that would have been better now, no. Already up there. Maybe that's so. I think it's a bigger discussion for this group to understand the importance of this. And whether we should be considering asking the state to redirect funds. I don't know what kind of requests have occurred, to with regards to the original grant funding. Federal government projects. Asking. Right. Say, oh, well, we didn't make the goal. I appreciate all your, I mean, we've been great in playing this line. Staff, us. I don't know if anyone else has been more directly involved in providing information.
I just saw Barbara taking notes on. Yeah, yeah. The funding's been.
I don't know if we have, the letter of the community who wants to sign on and just support.
So thanks for putting this on the agenda. I think it is important, because Tom Caswell said that we'll keep going. I really think it's important for the whole of the system. I think I have one more question for John. I think we should all raise some bread here to eat. And the same question I asked John as I said with the coalition meeting. Discussion. So he knows what I'm going to ask about, but maybe it's good to sit back down.
Thank you for that. Yeah.
We request every, so I don't know if anybody's doing this, but like a clearinghouse, everyone in your community that is sending a letter, could you send a copy to Dana so we can have them all in one place and share them back out?
One more and then we're gonna break. Yeah, we can do that as a team. Let's take lunch now. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for your advocacy. All right, let's have lunch.
Come on back.
I have your back.
Oh, I'm doing forward.
Yeah, just forward. So whenever he says next slide.
No, that's all good.
Thanks.
Okay. Yes.
Is it mic on? Okay,
Yes.
great. Sorry, everybody. I apologize. It's been an honor to be here with you. I have to leave at 12:30 because my whole background is in tourism and I still step on motor coaches. So I'm stepping on a tour at 2:30 from Indiana to take them up over the Colorado National Monument, which was planned like a year ago. So at any rate, it's an honor to be with you. Please feel free to reach out to me. And know that I'm there. It's still a huge learning curve for me. But I'm really trying to learn and it's pretty diligent about taking notes. So at any rate, thank you for everything you do. We really appreciate you. And again, feel free to reach out to us. So thank you.
So, I really appreciate you being here. Couple of things. Questions. Because we're gonna turn it back a little bit. I'm gonna focus on mainly the first few pages, but talk more. Whatever. So again, really discussing TPR basics, our regional priority program. Regional priority program is like the fund for business. Oh. Where? So I'll just reach loud, easily used to that, but. So on the next page, to deal with the slide.
I'm trying.
Read. There.
Oh, sir.
And
Just wait.
actually, yeah, right there. So the transportation commission sets all the policy, all the general management and the budgetary for infrastructure projects. So that really is Commissioner Bowman's representation for you in Mason County and a big portion of region. She covers 3 DPRs. The management policy, the recommendation of transportation policy, adoption of the budget. So management one. So then when you look at the categories of funding, I'm going to focus in on this more. Because this is important to understand the buckets of funding with CDOT and the relationship with the TPR and how this works. So the main categories are asset management. We have so many assets that we have to take care of, and we get a kind of separate funding allotment from Transportation Commission for that. So we have about a $2 billion budget. So and all this budget gets filled. These funds come to us by very. So it's very particular funds working together. So it has to be managed, service, treatment, other things. These would just keep our assets dollars up. This doesn't have to do with maintenance. Maintenance is some separate budget. I didn't know that on here. The asset management, surface treatment projects, probably our biggest effort. And then you have your culvert, your walls, especially around Minturn and others like assembly, we have deep wall effort. Then we have assets of the cash. So all those assets, they have their own funding and try to get a certain grade. Look at all the assets. Try to hit certain grades on each of those assets. Safety is another thing, so we have the faster safety program and that has to hit certain criteria. Faster safety is also given to the counties, the cities, they have their own criteria. It has hazard elimination, hotspot, wildlife. These are criteria that has to spend on certain efforts. And the more you try to restrict funding, it's capital fund for that. But it takes it from the general budget for automotives. So you have this, it doesn't expand the pie, it's sub-allocated. And then some last one, capital construction, that's really the mobility, and mobility, safety, and asset management all come in together. You can't really improve one without kind of improving the others as well. But the capital construction and mobility, there's been one steady fund, that's the priority program, and we'll get into that a little bit more. And an occasional fund, whether it's reallocation or other, column pennies from heaven, whether the feds, the state, bonding, strategic funding, and just the overarching term to use. That is then also the capital. So these look at. Again, to balance information and self-determination for the TPR. The information needs to come with the asset management for the safety. What we usually bring to the TPR is information about funding that we get, and depending upon the options we have. So I talked earlier about that bridge, the bridge. That was one of the rare times where a transportation commission got reauthorization funding. They just split it up in one region, and they said, okay, region 3, figure out what we want to do. Well, we knew we had the very big bridge that was an issue. We got about 17 million anyway. So that was part of that. And then so what we wanted all the CPRs to understand is typically we spread as much around 15 counties covered free. Try to do that as much as possible. So we met with CPR tariffs, got their consensus, and that was. So we can try to share that way as best we can. That doesn't happen a lot. And now they really try to bring in assets. County. They did recently. This is. It's 60 million total with the culvert. Right, but it went to just culverts. So it's this information item, not really a decision item for input. I got it. Try and bring that back. It's. No, that's fine. Culverts, we actually get back here for culverts. We have one that's gonna be like $10 million. 5 years worth of culvert money. So this huge chunk of culvert money, the transportation gave us was a huge building. So if you want back to the next slide.
It's not going.
So next slide talks about a regional priority program. You can stay on that slide.
Are you sure? Okay.
So the regional priority program, that is money that's given to us by commission. It's typically around 50 million a year. It's never by a transportation commission or other legislative decisions. It's funding provided to all 5 regions. At first, with the regional transportation director having the final responsibility of the distribution of use. And then RPP is the most flexible. Is that money that they give to us and say, okay, you can use it for design and construction. And we really like this flexible fund because we can use it to fill gaps in whether buildings, bids go high, bids go low. We can use it to help get projects designed, studies, whatever, the best we can. So there is treasured knowledge, because that's where they're trying to get a voice to prioritize. But they also get a chance to and then help grants the funding for CDOT. So we really treasure this a lot. So currently, again, transportation commission gives us about 50 million a year, and region 3 gets 14.3%. So that's 7 million a year. So for 5 or for 50 counties, 4 TPRs and EPO, we get 7 million a year. And as you know, that just doesn't go a little far. What we try to do is we try to do the best we can. If you go to the next slide. Looking at the other 5 areas of the state, 5 regions, there's just not a lot of RPP to go around. What we do the best we can with it. So again, we discussed this, you go to the next slide, I'll just do this real quick. And this is going back to its star, what it is. The transportation planning regions are the geographic area, and they're governed by the RPC. I actually got this right. Currently, Region 3 distributes the term, but currently Region 3 distributes the RPC funds equally as far as between all 4 areas. And it's to typically, we put them to CDOT projects within those areas and prioritization. So I'm gonna pause real quick there. Any questions? I've been going really fast.
I have one more.
Yeah.
You are in your offices and you're with the RTD and talking about that, those RPP funds. What are the natures of those conversations? How do you, from a staff standpoint, determine how you're going to allocate those dollars?
You say allocate, are you talking in general for the TPRs, which is specific?
Well, no, just generally what you guys do, because I know that there have been circumstances where we've had conversations, say with this group, about projects that, like you mentioned, might be a little short of funds, and you think there might be some RPP funding available to support those, and it turns out that it's already been earmarked.
So what, and again, this is where planning really comes into play and moving forward. So when the original, so as I started the very beginning, and you advance the next slides, because this is really come into play, but into this really well. So coming from this, I tried to make about a 5, 6, 7 year plan. So let's take it. We did a 10-year plan of RPP, follow TPRs, and this was project specific. And all these projects were laid out, and so this is the plan going forward. Was projects go out, some bid less, some money comes back. The money that comes back is, we look at that as kind of interesting, it's not a lot, maybe it's just per year, whatever, money that comes back. That comes back like this dot. Region 3, it needs to come back, it doesn't go back to general, but it gets back. That's the money my city to help, you know, over bids and under bids. It's not much. Typically, the RDP is used as planning dollars to go to construction on projects prioritizing to limit these dollars. Or we use it to start design and start research skids, I like to call it, on other projects. We could be doing a lot on Vail Pass without putting in that initially. A lot of us get study right now, it's just get that going. A lot of projects that we're doing in construction now are because we put our dollars through it early. We did the design vote, and we've done a lot of design funding. There's no real funding as far as set aside for the sum. In fact, about 2018, 2016, transportation commission did give each region, and this was, I never seen this side before, but I mean, let's see again. They gave every region equal amount. So region 2 got $1 million, just like every other region, to do design. And then it's called regional design pool, but it was just, they gave statewide $10 million in 5 regions that they designed. And again, you guys be able to probably be special. Some of the projects, it takes quite a bit to get these out. But Brian, you're keeping track of times, tell me when I go too far. It's important that once you start a design project, if you deter or stop or whatever, that's money that's placed. And so we're very protective of people moving forward on those. So region three initially starts, okay, we know we're getting. And we do. But we're, I expect that we can get 7 million a year for RTP. I'm trying to tell all the CPRs, you're gonna get 7 million over 4 years. So if I do a 4-year plan or an 8-year plan, I'm gonna get 7 million over this for 14 8-year plan. So I try to plan those projects, work with you guys to figure out how we'll distribute and look forward so that it still, okay, we're planning this, we're doing this. Looking at these down the road, so once they're started, then we have a direction. So I really also think this plan. So right now, and that's we've all done. People share. Next slide. So again, in the planning process, which wrote in the county meetings, talking about basic projects, then go to infill. The prior meetings, you don't really have calendar out yet, but it's definitely there may be 3 to 4 meetings per TPR, the next planning cycle here. That will be working on the 2050 plan. And then at the end of this, we come to a joint TPR meeting, and really the bottom 4 chairs talk about what was really critical region wide. And if we had to look at one direction or another, we focus on that. So, next slide. So I want to give an example here of the last time we did this. Let's just go to the next slide. Because that project prioritization, I'm not so sure that that's gonna stick around. And the long range plan, the 20-year plan is where we try to pull a bunch of projects in. We take all those projects, we look at really what's critical, we get it down to 10-year plan. So there's a lot of questions. Like, well, why is it on the 10-year plan, the plan project's not there? And it's like, well, it was on the 20, but eventually, when you come to fiscal constraint, they really don't put fiscal constraint on the 20-year plan. So there's a ton of projects there. Well, all of a sudden, eventually, we do have to funnel down what is fiscal impact. That's where things kind of went into a 10-year plan, and we did as much as we thought was fiscally responsible, then we come down strength the statewide transportation improvement program, which is a federal document that has to be fiscally constrained. At some point, dollars do come in, we have to say, okay, this is only how much we have. So projects tend to fall off. That's a lot of them to talk about. I show this slide because the bottom line, it takes a minimum 2 to 3 years for a project to go through project development. Fail, pass, and how many and it's still so if we don't maintain consistency plans, a lot of it is kind of tends to go waste. You guys understand that it's better than but yeah, it's kind of the planning project development. So I'm positive there are questions.
I may have misunderstood. Say that the 10-year capital plan is fiscally constrained.
They gave us, it was not fiscally constrained, so what they did, is they said, what X amount of dollars to, because they're doing bonding in 2019. And so what they did, they broke it out into 2 4-year segments and a little 2-year segment up for them. They did a bonding over there. They did, they're pretty sure over the first 4 years how much they'll get, but they weren't sure because the Fed were doing a new federal funds bill. So they do the first 4 years with the Fed and then I pay 8, 4 years. A little less than they thought, so then it's okay. So just I don't know about past that, but the first 4 years were very constrained, 7 years became constrained as well, and then stuff just kept a little bit down as projects were went up or whatever. I mean, there are a lot of things, but it just didn't always keep moving those down the road. Does that help? It does. It's correct for me to think of it this way, with the long range plan, your plan.
Yes.
Not based on any, but, well, we're supposed to, we're supposed to say, this is what we expect. What if he does a fantastic job, looks at their, like, their word, well, how much it's gonna be, and then you try and say, okay, it's gonna be the cost of these projects. The problem is, we're looking at the future, not only how much they have, but how much the projects may cost. Try to bring those in closer down to here, or be very visually constrained and start making bets. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, a 20-year plan. Not that much, that way, and then 10-year or more, so we have a better idea, I guess. Yeah. Next slide. Yeah.
Good. Next question. You say that the CDOT budget is $2 billion a year. They can't give the TPRs like 30 million a year just so we have something serious to talk about. Serious.
You know, that's an excellent. Well, they give you $8 million a year, but it's not per TPR. Think. Wow, that's a beautiful question. Really, it's really thoughtful. I want to say because residents really in the county meetings, if you haven't had a meeting, I really want this to break down our capital projects about 800 million, and then put our maintenance and asset management 500 million. And we try to hit right there, I think some things. And the assets, you drive the roads, and let me ask you, we almost turn around, what would you do? I mean, put it to your local roads, you still have to put it to the state system.
Well, that'd be fine, right now. The town of Gibson is gonna do a roundabout on North I-70. And we're funding the whole thing with town money and 2 developers. And I'm not even gonna approach this crap. We're gonna kill somebody out there on I-70. So we're doing it for the sake of safety and not coming to borrow money from some of you all, but for us to sit around this room and quibble about 2 million or 4 million every 5 years, and wasting our time. We need some serious money because City of Glenwood's got problems, Eagle, the counties have problems. A lot more. We're gonna kill somebody on the Newcastle and Still exits because their off ramps are way back on the I-70. And you just can't do money or any of these projects without a lot more money to talk about. And the closer you get to the local level and the county level, more efficiently that money's spent. It's a fact. State and federal money is squandered, like we all know in this room. So get it down to a local level, state, towns and counties, so we can use that more efficiently, get more bang for the buck.
Well, another way to look at it, we talked about briefly or previously, is that I-70 should be its own thing and not a thing TPRs are funding. You know what I'm saying? It's an interstate highway. That money, if this money was talked about for local projects, real local projects, that'd be a lot more beneficial to your point.
Gary, I think your question needs a good answer, and I don't know if Mark's gonna have it right now, but let's get back to you, because I think the more money we have, the more valuable our meetings become.
Yeah.
More participation we'll have, so it's a good question, deserves an answer.
Yeah.
So, we'll get it.
I appreciate all the comments. So, for this slide, and I want to know these projects, they're on the 27 plus year document. That these 6 on the right hand column are the ones that are, you know, you made an interesting point, man. I'm not gonna let this one go. You know, as far as I said, it is very critical, even in one of the slides we talked about, I may have just Gonna would go faster, by real quick. Somebody made the mention in here, well, Grand Junction or other people ought to do money up here to help. They did, they gave, put 20%, 2019. Instead of dividing in 4 ways, they put 20% to I-70. Just to help Vail pass, so don't think it's not considered, but there's needs up and down everywhere. You have a bridge in Dennis County that's gonna need some serious money, it's not just. And I know it's very real in front of your face, but when I look over 15 counties. Maybe go over the problems up and down, and these guys out of Denver, sure to go over and over. These problems, and then we're looking at bike and ped and all these other things. That, and the needs are just out there, so I could go on, but I won't.
Mark, can you wrap it up and?
Yes, I'm done. So, and those are CDOT safe needs that are gonna need help. They're not even on the 27 year, but they're gonna need help, but yeah. We'll go with that. If there's any questions, or if I get another chance, I'll go.
Any other questions, comments? I'll call it on James. All right. Nailed it.
And then I see you looking at, can I ask a question of Mark for clarification before we get started on our retreat?
Absolutely.
Mark, when you were talking about the 3 funding categories, which of those, is it the one on the far right? We go back to that slide, which I know you're jumping, so don't. Which category does multimodal and transit fall into? For reading great.
The 1 or 2 things, capital construction would be on your far right.
Yeah, that's what I.
Like, probably. Let's take it in the left tab. That goes through CDOT, federal dollars or other or state dollars flow through CDOT, but we right through to this board to decide projects. The end of the left, the multimodal funding, transit funding, those are all tax dollars that we manage, but don't see any benefit for our system.
So then a follow-up question, sort of related. Who is the gentleman you were standing here? I was like, here you. So let's say we get a different funding source that's not from CDOT for a given project, whether it's locally funded roundabout, or whether I get grant funding for a public transit project or grant funding for an active transpo project, right? Has nothing to do with y'all's funding processes, but we would still need to report it into a local tip or a STIP, right?
So like COLA, it's not on the system. So if it's on the local system and dollar, it doesn't need to be in the STIP. We don't need the tip, so it will be in the STIP. On occasion, I do encourage locals to, I encourage living same thing. To STIP dollars, they're putting in local because it shows that you're putting in local dollars to the state transportation system.
Right.
So you acknowledge that it is documented extract, so if there's ever an opportunity. For grants or whatever, we can show them instead.
Right. And I think it documents a need, correct, in a given region?
That's a really good question, because if you're doing the planning, you're showing the need. I mean, it doesn't show need, but it shows your effort there, and it's easy to say. Hey, there's a need here, we're putting our own local dollars to it. So
Right.
it does show a need there.
Okay. We should stay on that and continue that
There's a lot,
discussion.
I mean, if you bring up several interesting points. You gotta go through it.
I know, right? I guess that's why I'm here, huh? Okay. Brian? I guess.
We are, and thank you for being here. And this is going to be short. You were early to dive into this, we'd be all day. So this could be an introduction to a longer discussion, but initially, just want to make sure that we're kind of all on the same page, because we will be prioritizing in the future, regardless of how much money we are provided. So I want to make sure that we have a process and a good plan for doing it. We'll end by saying this, our job, it's really two different hats you need to wear as a representative of your agency here. One is to advocate for your own local needs. But I would argue that the larger hat, the more important hat, is to prioritize regional across the 5-county area for CEDA. That's our job. I wish, what John said, I wish I-70 was its own entity, because that would give us more flexibility for our own needs, but it's not. So we have to include it in our prioritization. So those are our two roles as members here: represent our own agency, advocate for our projects, but also understand that we're here to look at the larger.
Like that. That's a good introduction. And a good reminder. I guess I should introduce myself. Do I need a mic?
Do you want a
So
mic?
you can hear me? Or is it-
Yeah, you can use this mic.
The portable mic. I like to walk around, especially after lunch because.
Yeah, go for it.
What do you want to do this on?
Yep, it's on.
Can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. Good afternoon. Hi, I'm Meredith Green. Most of you probably don't know me. I am an independent consultant and I specialize in a variety of things. I actually got my start working for a DOT, TxDOT, and now do contract work for a variety of DOTs. My area of subject matter expertise happens to be public transportation. So if you hear me nitpicking about buses and stuff, even in rural areas, that's a really big deal to me. Multimodal projects and the like. And I specialize in trainings and facilitations, which is, I guess, why I'm here today. And kind of why I was picking on poor Mark over there about the CDOT process, because I think there's a lot of things that are different in the state of Colorado that I like to ask questions about. So the purpose of today, so this is essentially the retreat portion of your day. And Brian is right. Normally we would do this type of work that I'm about to do with you in a 6 to 8 hour full-on workshop. I think for the purposes of today, we're going to do some high level touch points on, and I'll get to my agenda in a second, but on goal setting and how do we move forward from here when the process seems somewhat structured. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And I'm assuming I'll be back at some points. Dana and Brian can talk about that later to kind of guide you through this process. So first things first, let's jump to the agenda. Oh, by the way, I am local, and by local, I mean to Colorado. I'm in Durango, so I'm in Region 5. And you saw like our pithy little 7% that we get for funding. We have a ton of rural entities down there and a lot of need. So I have a huge appreciation for trying to make things work and create funding streams, which we can get into not today, but at a later point. So I'll stop standing in front of this slide. For our agenda today, and this is not in the order that we're going to do this, but we're going to talk about our goals for project prioritization. And I'm going to talk about some of the stuff that we heard from you in your group survey that you did to take, or some of you took before today's meeting. And then if we have time, which I don't know that we will, depending on how chatty you all are, it seems like everyone's very passionate about their areas. We'll talk about building on the themes of the most recent plan and being flexible with emerging themes. So really what we're going to do today is talk about this group survey, expectations and norms of this group moving forward, and then our goals for project prioritization. So Dana, do you want to jump to the next slide? On your agenda, Dana had copied over your IMTPR purpose statement. And I kind of highlighted some things here. This is really hard to read, and I apologize. This font is not showing up well on the screen, so we can make some changes before it gets sent out to all of you. But I'm not going to read this whole thing. The whole point is that you guys are coming together as the Intermountain TPR to work kind of in conjunction with CDOT and be a partner to identify regional plan recommendations, priority projects, and that includes the gamut. So I think it's really important to point out here in this purpose statement that that is not just I-70. Yes, I-70 is a big deal. Yes, it is important that it's functional, but this includes services, facilities, multimodal alternatives, safety, and a variety of things. And so as we move forward into the goal setting piece, I'm going to show you guys a bunch of word salad from a variety of things that have involved this specific transportation planning region, and all the plans that have kind of happened before this point in time. And so we'll talk through what that means for you all. And it also, just the last paragraph here, you're looking at environmental, social, and economic impacts of you, not just the region, but your specific entities, whether it's a city, a county, or the like. And so it's really important to point those out because, again, I'm not picking on I-70, but it's not just about I-70, right? So we've got to figure out a way to move forward with a functional project prioritization process from here on out. So let's talk about the survey results. Raise your hand, who all got to participate in that survey that was sent out prior to the meeting? So a good chunk of you. I think we had about 25 plus respondents. Which
Awesome, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Because that kind of helps us move into this next step here. And really what we're trying to do here with this group, and you'll see it on the slide that wraps up this survey summary, is we're looking to establish norms and expectations for you all. I think it is wonderful to see so many representatives here from so many towns and cities, because I know that your time it matters and everyone is very, very busy. So first of all, I just want to say thank you for showing up because I think it's a really big deal. And I speak from the perspective of the wife of a city manager, so I get it. Trust me. So real quick, I'm going to run through these responses. How long have you participated in the IMTPR? It was a sprinkling of things. There is about 30 to 40% of you all that have been here for 10 plus years, which is great. You're seasoned veterans, you've been around, and that can be good and can be bad. That's good, and that there's a lot of institutional knowledge and that you have the ability to share with some of our newer participants. It can be bad because we get jaded and burnt out and feel like we're doing the same thing over and over again. So there are trade-offs there, and it depends on how you approach it. And then there's about 16% that have been around for 5 to 10 years. So same thing. But then if you look at the orange and green parts of your pie chart there, you have nearly half of the participants that are relatively new. And so in some cases, we're probably looking for context and have a lot of questions about why are we here? What does it matter? How do I participate? How do I wear both hats, probably, for both the region and then my respective city, town, or county, my agency, right? So does this that pie chart resonate with you guys just a little bit? Yes, no? Y'all are getting sleepy. Let's jump to the next slide. Okay. So you guys filled out some of the questions on the survey were a little bit more open-ended. And so on these slides, I just synthesized what we heard the most from the group. And so this question, what motivates you to show up and participate in these IMTPR meetings? So the whole point here is to say, like, how do we keep this vibe going that we've got going? What we heard collectively was you want to further the transportation goals of the region. Seems fair. You're here for updates from not only CDOT, but Region 3, and you want to hear what people are up to, what's going on, how's it going. Regional priority setting and local priority advocacy. This is a big thing because this speaks to the two hats that you all are wearing. And what I heard consistently in the survey is, yes, we want to advocate for our region and also prioritize the major projects that take place here. But then also, I've got a lot of local projects that are super important to my town or to my city. And I want to know, how do those fit into this overall planning process? Oh, this was another big one that holds hands with that third bullet, ensuring effective and equitable allocation of transportation resources to our community. So that was expressed in a variety of ways. And I think Someone even said that verbatim. So whoever said that, go you. Good job. And then the last one is also equally important and tied to the third and fourth is funding. So how do we learn about funding availability and vote on funding allocations? And so as we move forward into the next steps in the project prioritization process, I think it's important to note that yes, your job is here. It's wearing the hat of advocating for what happens in your particular Intermountain region, but then also how do we begin to develop a meaningful prioritization process that would include things other than major interstates and things that seem to be behemoth projects that take up a lot of funding, and of course they're high priority, but also the things in my local community are high priority too. So how do we find that balance? It's the next slide, Dana. Okay, so another question was, how do we get you here? What can be done to ensure attendance on a representation from all of our IMTPR partners? And this is again, a synthesis of what you all said. Hybrid meeting options. And that was an interesting one because it was said with great frequency that you want both in person, but also the ability to Zoom. And so I think it tells us that this is meaningful. It's a meaningful process. You want to make sure that you're participating. But then conversely, what we heard over and over again, even in the open comment section, is like, everyone feels it's important that you're here in person. So while everyone acknowledges I can't be at every single meeting, it's also super important to be here in person. So that was an interesting thing that I was noticing. Food is a big deal. We all love food. And so that is one way to get you to show up. It's providing food. Funding and attendance tie-ins. So a lot of it is understanding if I'm not present in one of these meetings, does that mean I lose out on funding, or I lose out on my vote to receive funding, or my vote to fund something important in the region? And so there's a couple of questions about how do we get people to attend more consistently, or there are a couple of comments about that, and then can we tie it to votes and funding? I'm not here to get into your bylaws, but those are topics that came up consistently. Alternating meeting locations, I put in parentheses, maybe hosting opportunities. 20 years ago, when I was working for the Regional Transit Coordination Committee in Central Texas, which is the capital area, we had 10 county region there, and that was within the TxDOT region thing. And we basically agreed that some different entity would host the meeting each time. So we had quarterly meetings, and it would be in a different location each time. And we did our best to make it work. I don't know if that's what's best for you all. It's merely a suggestion for discussion here in a minute. More money. So this is kind of touching on what I was teasing about with Mark just a bit ago was, like, well, what about this funding? What if we have funding that's other than CDOT? How do we creatively make that work? And how do we frame that for not just the state, but our region in expressing need? So, and then valuable discussion, clear agendas. And I just wanted you guys to pat yourselves on the back because I was listening to all of the discussion this morning, and it's lovely. It's nice. It's respectful. Everyone has a lot of interesting thoughts, and you bring really great things to the table from your respective communities. So I feel like you're already off to a great start. And so that was one of the comments that was made, is just having a clear agenda, having a set agenda, getting in and out, doing what we came to do, and moving on. Next slide. So this question was relative to the transportation region process. You only had about 30% that were very familiar with the process. Everyone else is either somewhat familiar or not familiar with it at all. And so I think it was great that Mark had a little time to touch on it, but I think there's always, as you all have seen, room for more questions and probably room for improvement. And that doesn't mean that I'm knocking CDOT. It just means that those are considerations for the overall process.
Whoa, sorry about that.
That's okay. Just leave it and jump to the next. And then please share with us anything else you'd like us to know. Everyone loves Dana.
Oh, thanks.
We appreciate Dana. She's doing a good job. She's trying to keep us within communication and keep everything organized. So she's appreciated. Again, going back to how do we how do these meetings play out? Everyone said showing up is important. And so not just consistently missing meetings. And yes, there was an understanding that sometimes everyone needs to Zoom, but being here physically is important. And then there was a lot of discussion, and we kind of touched on this, is this idea of relative project scoring. So how do we create a better prioritization process? Because it's not always going to be apples to apples. And in some cases, it's going to be a super important project to a rural area that may not necessarily stack up against the big interstate or bridge collapse projects for obvious reasons. But how do we formulate as a group, a collective process to prioritize projects and move forward? And if we have those projects prioritized, and for some reason they get locked off of that CDOT list, but we've ranked it as high priority here for Intermountain, what do we do about funding it? So that's what I was hearing from all of you. I'm gonna pause and shut up and let you guys comment on what I just shared. And, you know, let me know, does that resonate? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Feel free to type up.
I think that last point is important. One sort of level. We're prioritizing projects for such a small amount of money. But there's a lot of other grants and things out there that people want to apply for, but we need to be on the list to apply for them. So how do we make that work? And the process still feel equitable, not projects not jumping over projects that were prioritized, but those prioritized projects just might not compete for certain grants. And I think we need to put as much money as we possibly can into the regions. So how do we make it feel fair to support those projects for grant applications, but not, still be able to apply for them? This is additional until we place for them.
It's a really good point, Ben. Other thoughts related to that topic?
Said something that makes me more interested in anything. They don't have to apply. Local agencies can apply. That's going to be one of the hardest things this next plan. Because local agencies, I mean, you don't have those that apply.
A lot of them do have those, like, if you're honest, too.
But yeah.
But it's not
That's what it is. You look at the number of congressionally declared spending projects that came in. Look at the number of grants. And compare them with the needs. You know, talk about giving $30 million. I mean, the city of Delta got $13 million to do sidewalks. Yep. Well, not any. So be careful. I just had to correct that one today. Yeah, it's in the plan, but.
And I guess the bigger question is, how do we support every project, or do we, how we provide support, things like that?
Show that, what's other, right, other. I don't even say Dr. Riggs.
You're definitely speaking, I think, I could not agree with these two statements more than anything. That honestly has me more nervous than anything. Correction, the processes. And we've seen it early in my career where the projects they got earmarked, and that's not a term that's supposed to use it, that's a term everybody understands. They got earmarked, and then they had to use RPP unit to get plan for those, so that just emptied out all the time.
All right, so we're gonna keep ticking along, but this is kind of, that's the point of the discussion is we're gonna develop a project prioritization process for IMTPR. That's why we're here, right? Yes. Yes, okay, cool. But first, let's talk about setting up our meeting norms because that is the survey data. And then I'm gonna look to Brian and say, I know we went through a painstaking process of the bylaws. But can we have an open discussion about like the expectations for meeting norms and attendance?
Absolutely.
Is that, okay, great. Okay, so this is where I open it up to you all and say, after hearing all of the feedback on the survey that we just went through, what are the expectations for these quarterly meetings? What are the attendance expectations? Do you plan on attending every single meeting a quarter? Are you going to assign a proxy? If you don't assign a proxy, are we doing but Zoom? And I know that do we still have people that are on Zoom now that are listening?
Yes.
So I'm looking to you all and saying, this is your meeting. What would you like to see moving forward? What would you like to see this look like? Tom?
Proxy is not a good word because we are either the primary or the alternate.
Right.
And there is no other. You're not here or you're not online, you don't do both.
So is the expectation that people should show up as much as physically possible?
Personal.
Okay, what about other thoughts on this? So.
And so coming in person can be hard on those types of days. But I agree with you when it's actually online, people coming meetings, and this is far more valuable. The online platform is difficult at best to hear everybody and to follow the decision. So I would say never would possible. So it's valuable. I think it's harder for smaller towns with smaller staffs.
Sure.
I agree with that. In person is always better. We've got online to make it possible for us. And I wonder, and I guess this would depend on every community too, but if we can encourage, like for the county's perspective, if we had a stronger relationship with this type of thing to say, Michelle says, listen, we can't be there in person. Here are the things that I'm looking at for this meeting, whatever, just so you know who at Eagle County will be there. Because when we talk about location, we've been really fortunate that it has tended to be at the county building. So for Eagle County as an organization, it's been beneficial. And try to encourage relationships within the smaller county town areas and transportation districts.
I think that's a great thing to get to that.
And I have Dana taking notes too, so that we can make sure those points capture.
I also have Jared has raised his hand. So Jared, if you want to go ahead.
Jared?
Yeah, I apologize if I'm repeating what someone else said in the room, but I'd say about half of you guys are talking to the mic, so we hear only portions of everybody. But I think one thing that's challenging is for those jurisdictions that aren't located in Eagle County, getting to these meetings over the years can be a challenge. Not to mention smaller organizations where we don't have a lot of staff redundancy and spending, an entire day traveling from, say, Aspen to Dillon or Dillon to Aspen, at either extreme ends can be challenging. So I'd really hate to see a situation where in-person attendance is directly related to prioritization of projects and funding of those projects. I think that's kind of disrespectful of the IMTPR to a lot of the smaller agencies that don't have those opportunities and those redundancies or staffing levels that allow them to attend every single meeting.
Thanks, Jared. That's a really good point. So what we're hearing is pretty similar to what we found in the survey. So we agree that when we can, we try to attend in person, but Zoom is offered for those who absolutely can't make it work.
Just to point it out too, I don't know why we always hold it in Eagle County, I suppose because of the central location, but thinking about today and Jared's comment about hearing things about who's on mic, Eagle County is in this region one of the better places because the room is mic'd. So even people sitting back in the chairs can typically be heard online. And if we are committing, and I think it sounds like we are committing to that virtual option, we have to figure that out and make sure that wherever we've got it, that people online can equitably participate.
It's a really good point. And in fact, Dana and I were just discussing that right before the meeting started, was how it's set up and can people participate meaningfully, even when they're not physically here. So we'll add that to the list of meeting norms. So meeting locations, and I'll get right back to you, Brian, only if they can support the technology needs of virtual participation? Yes? Yes?
Yep, I would, yes.
Okay, Brian, what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, one of the reasons also selected that central location. So you could all rely on that for the spot and not have to go, oh, Eagle, I'm supposed to be able to solve. So it's just that muscle memory of I'm just going to Eagle.
So we're setting attendance expectations that we attempt to be in person, except when we absolutely cannot be. Meeting locations can vary geographically, but they must be able to support virtual attendance. We have a shared understanding of our purpose. Is there anyone here that is not clear about what the purpose of the IMTPR? And I'm not meaning that to be stupid. It's a question like, are we clear on why we're here? I think Brian framed it well as the two hats, both hats, right?
Can somebody explain what the importance of this group is, other than prioritizing money?
Oh, that's a great question. Who wants to take a stab at that?
I'll take a little bit of a swing at it. I think part of it is that, and we realize this when we go through our 10-year planning process, right? You get to understand what the challenges are that your neighbor is facing. Maybe not just an immediate neighbor, but somebody that's, 120 miles away. You get a better understanding of what they're facing, what the impacts to their community are. I've seen it in a couple of different locations, and it was referenced a few minutes ago by interchanges that are having the same problem. Off-ramp interchanges in Summit County and one in Silt or Newcastle that are facing the same exact problem. I think if you're not here, you don't get an understanding of that. And so I think it's important for us to gain a shared knowledge and kind of to Jared's point, a little bit of empathy for our neighbor, because I can't speak to what a really good project in Lake County is, but they can describe it to me. And at that point, I hope that I can start to get a feeling for what the impacts are to their county of a project that I may not have any knowledge of.
And Jared gave you a thumbs up.
Yes.
Just add to that it's also an opportunity for us to hear from CDOT directly on what projects are coming up, where there's might be closures, what's happening with the bridge on 50, things like that. It's an opportunity to see Region 3, ask questions. And I agree with Bentley and add even a little bit further. It's almost a networking opportunity with people in similar situations.
And I don't wish the same thing. It's for us to know that see how things really affect. It's just getting from point A to point B, it's getting around. It's doing that, getting to know our local participants, stakeholders. A bylaw. You have a purpose. Really,
The IMTPR purpose, yeah, the purpose statement, yes.
I agree with all that, the value of what we do. Is higher. Mark, I think though, the real primary. For the purpose of the need for this is the federal. I think the federal funding is dependent upon the states engaging in this kind of local planning. I don't want us to lose sight of that, that's why we're here. Yeah, what's interesting, the federal laws for the state to have a plan. And really the state can say, okay, we'll plan for everybody except the NPOs. The NPOs basically are federal declaration. So what the state has done is they say, okay, you 10 rural areas, we will support and pay and help build your plan. That is the reason. So thank you for bringing that up. But yeah, so it's a self-determination for really to kind of plan the progress.
Yeah, and I ask also because when I look at, say, DRCOG, right, they have all sorts of regional planners doing regional transportation planning, and I've wondered, had this conversation with Margaret a lot. Is there funding that we don't get because we're gonna have somebody doing that work? So we got 70 Coalition, we got this group. What lane does this group have? That's why I say, besides the really important prioritizing, what from Dana is no way to ask that too.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Lots of meetings specifically that. Grand Junction NPO, they get some funding, not nearly that kind, but to develop their own plan, right? To do that. And yeah, the DRCOG, and plus they get their own, they literally get the 30 million plus. Just for their own spending, when they run self-determined. But who gives them that? That's better. Yes.
Right.
Because at some point, again, it goes back to population. If you really look at this, you guys could either correct me if I'm wrong. From what I understand, through the 60s and 70s, when the population were saying, hey, we're not getting enough attention here, we want more funding, more self-determination. That's where a lot of that started. Again, all the money from a regional view to very localized stuff.
Club 20 was initially a transportation advocacy group.
So just putting a little bit of a bow on that discussion, so that then like the for your IMTPR and the purpose. It's to give you all a voice in the overall planning process. However, I even see it as layers because you all are representing IMTPR. You're representing this region, you're saying, here are the projects that are priority to us. However, each of you represents an individual town, city, county, and you have customers who are your community and your residents who you are also representing. So it's striking that balance there, the fix our language process, making sure that everybody is represented, particularly because this isn't a populated area. This is not DRCOG. This is not going to be Grand Junction NPO. This is going to be our rural representatives. So having an agreed upon set of meeting norms and then subsequent project prioritization process moving forward is going to be fairly mission critical. Right? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just add one other thing, because it's also influencing your representative to staff. You get more money coming to the Intermountain region. I'll give you an example why, because we're talking about DRCOG. DRCOG would love all the state money to be given based on population. However, if you look at the county, because I know it, there's about 17,000 people in the county. However, at the peak of ski season or in the middle of summer, we're about 56,000. We are getting credit for all those folks driving around and it's the same way, Summit, Lake, partial. So to be able to bring that to the staff and say, we need to redistribute money based on other factors is important. So know that you have an influence as part of this group.
Brian, can you say what stack means?
I'll just say quickly too, from my perspective, what I have gained from this as well is appreciating that this isn't just the Hunger Games where we're all just fighting. Funny, it was to Mark's point, when somebody mentioned like just, local dollars, it's right. It was like, but you understand, this is a system. It has to work as a system. So if Dr. Cog got their way, the whole thing collapses. And we understand that meeting together in a room, at least that's what I've come to understand much better. And we do a good job, particularly in person, is weighing what we've got in our own particular area with what we all need for this all to work together. And others, so making decisions based on the whole system.
Yeah. So all of this discussion, Dana's been taking notes. I'm gonna work with her to type up a set of meeting norms for you all for your next meeting to kind of review and say, yeah, we all agree, this is how we're gonna approach things moving forward. As far as the meetings themselves, we have not even began to touch the surface of goal setting and prioritization, which we won't have time to do everything today, but we can at least talk about it. So then on that note, are there other items or questions or things related to this topic that you feel are important to add before we move on to the next thing?
You want to talk about norms for advocacy at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. Let's do that. Norms for advocacy. So I think the point, and then please tell me, I mean, I'm assuming the point you're trying to make is, yes, we have our project prioritization for the region, but how do we advocate for ourselves in that process as a whole, right? Is that kind of where you were
Well,
headed?
Brian, you can go on. We've talked about, like Glenwood Canyon, should we send a letter to the legislature or to higher up in CDOT about doing this or that, and it comes from IMTPR.
Well, and how do we really utilize our transportation commissioner, who is very in tune, Barbara already left, but, yeah, how do we have conversations with her and, more than just, we're gonna send a blind letter, like, can we organize a meeting?
The bill pass is a great example. Without getting together.
What is the deal? Should be. Thanks. Where we have at. Can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
We hit on this years where as long as it's not upsetting the apple cart, for example. Funding is a plan, it's coming in, it is not otherwise available to anybody else, or there's not competition for it. The IMTPR then jumps behind supporting whoever will be. But what I have also seen is when there is some, it's hard to then go and say, IMTPR will support you, so that you. We don't do that. We have, don't think I'm wrong, Brian, I've never seen it. So as a norm for me, as long as that funding, whoever it is supporting, is not really, I think, covered in our bylaws. But if one person says no, then you have either a vote or frankly, what I've seen us do in the past is no position whatsoever. Because individual activities that play a role better, but you're not going to support something that is not really relevant. I don't know if you want to like that as a norm, but that's kind of how I've seen it happen.
Well, and so what I'm hearing based on that discussion is we're trying to, and please tell me, I'm not trying to put words in your mouths, avoid things getting too siloed, right?
Yeah, or the equitable outcomes. Have that up here, some people might feel like that's not an equitable outcome. If the TPR is going to support
taking money away from us to give to them, or money that I would have already been in competition for, that now I'm gonna be supporting the grant that I'm also putting into it.
I think there's two levels of advocacy that are both worth talking about. One is what you're talking about, which is, can IMTPR write a letter supporting Town of Vale to do something, or right, or Dylan, and how does that work? But I think you did set that up in the bylaws with this, I'm talking about the next level of advocacy, like kind of Tom was talking about, right? At the state level or the federal level, this region is saying that. That's a different kind of advocacy. Do you want to talk about that as a norm? Because we haven't done that, and I think that's been a void in this area. I'm saying that as the cog, right?
Let me put a situation.
Yeah.
Done that. We've always been population at this level, and that would be a particular one that you would say PPR, and that would be this is what we all support.
Yeah.
More policy type thing.
Well, I think for that particular circumstance, that's where we give Brian direction to sit in front of the staff and pound the table for changing that formula, because what you'll find, what I found when I was representing, was that the rural agencies, if we take a strong advocacy policy for that, then we are typically all on the same page. And I think to John's point, I think if I understand kind of what he's saying, I think his question is more about active advocacy in terms of being out in front of something rather than reactive. Is that a good way to say it?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't been doing it.
Right.
And sometimes we get asked that at COG. I did not have a transportation person before Dana, right? So I see there's a little bit of an opportunity here for, when Brian and Ben were doing what they're doing, they had other jobs, right? To say, hey, take some time to run this to ground, or find out about this, or draft a letter. We just didn't have the capacity for that. And we weren't flexing our muscles with that. So I'm just saying there's an opportunity, I think, now that this group could do a little of that.
Or lobbying.
Yeah, there's
Right.
more transportation legislation that's being considered right now than I've seen in the past. So that's an example of something we could influence the data and feed those through.
And without getting too much into the weeds, the short answer is yes, and it's critical and it impacts everybody. So then I think.
And I would say things like that, something.
Yeah.
Correct.
Which.
And I don't want to hijack too much of this, but I will say, like the River District and some other places work on adopting some maybe principles or general policies that then we've agreed upon, that then Brian or whoever can go out and know where the group stands on. Just the funding formula would be one of those, right? He's fully able to pound the table about anything that comes up related to that, because you've sort of adopted that. I'll stop there. Do you want to do that kind of thing?
Yeah, so then do you guys want to do that sort of thing? Do you want to be prepared to take on that level of advocacy?
Well, part of it is that your representative to the team, to the staff, is going to need to say, okay, this issue is coming up. I think it's important to this group. And that's when we get to drill down into where we stand and what our position is to tell, again, have them take that back to that larger group.
And I will say, top right, so that takes. Here, majority staff. And we're starting to get into certain that are at the political level that probably take back to our whatever.
It's a good point.
And make sure that we're in tune. So it does get a little fun. You've had those conversations before. The response to the staff, something we so it's a little common. Yeah.
So can I throw this out, that I think that's not a bad thing, but it should be a more. Only something, because I would be focused on doing that when we really have higher, but a different type of mission. Which is really, that's not why we're put together, we're put together.
So let's hear from, I saw Glenwood Spring, so who did I see over here?
Well, those was not the golf, but
Okay.
I would say. It's we need to identify legislative session. The half dozen bills that might impact transportation. Just kind of tracking it for our benefit, to be able to potentially take a position on it early enough, as they say, to introduce the state process. So that we get to the point where someone gets called, says, right, or Dana, you know, we need somebody in 3 days to testify before this house subcommittee or whatever. There's a bolus. You know, that called a number of times. But you're right, as an elected official. So I don't know how that necessarily impacts, but I think if the municipality or county gives, whether it's staff or elected, the authority on this body, and if the body takes a position, then you know, maybe it's a conversation with the municipalities, but I think that gives you the ability to be able to testify or to advocate for the positions that the bodies take. We got to figure out what we think about this in 3 days. They testify, they'll have known about this because they'll have a little bit of practice from it.
Right, so almost like a high level legislative priorities early on. Enough so that you know that you're all agreed, and I would say that you all are each individually in your own right, you know, you obviously comment and go to speak about these things, but as a group, as a whole, and collective, you have a much bigger voice.
And I testify on behalf of CAST, I thought to testify on behalf of City of Springs, I testified on behalf of different organizations that I'm part of them. So I don't think it's outside the realm of those for that.
Right.
And not to get in the
Whether
weeds.
should or shouldn't,
Yeah.
We've done this for. I'm not sure I totally feel comfortable that this group should engage in sort of legislative lobbying and advocacy. I think absolutely we should advocate for the projects that we prioritize. And, you know, kind of the one that we talked about today is Bill Pax. To me, it would make sense, this group would send a message to the state saying, hey, we think this is an important project, we're going to see if you think it out. But that's very directly related to what we do. There's a piece of legislation that's come up about, you know, changing or creating, I don't know, another like high performance transportation. Do we really want to engage in that level of advocacy? I'm not sure, and for a couple of reasons. One was mentioned that we're all like staff, right? We've only got so much time to do this. But also, you know, to do that, then are we going to go back to our respective political bodies and try to take their temperature in direction from them? I don't know if there's a need for this group to do that. And I'm not saying that the COG or others should do that kind of work, but it's not, I agree, it's not what we've done in the past, but if it's directly related on purpose.
It's a good point, and I just think about it being at the COG and not having a transportation focus, that we're missing something in the region. Maybe there needs to be a political committee that is, you know, a group of politicians who talk about policy stuff that represent TPR. I don't know if that's a scary idea or not.
I mean, that's the Transportation Commission, though. Like,
Yeah.
that's Barbara's role, is to gather all of this information,
Right,
advocate, and her and I have
yeah.
bi-monthly conversations, just like, how can she help? What's going on with us? And so I don't know if we need like another level. I think it just needs to be more top of mind.
Ben, let me just ask him.
Yeah.
And Barbara has said she will come to meetings if she can. She will talk to anyone. Her and I have conversations, you know, with Brian. So I think,
Continuing to include that as.
yes.
Policy for this IMTPR. Okay. I'm gonna stop us there because it's a lot of discussion and we haven't even touched on this and the other things that we need to do, and we only have like 8 minutes. So if you're okay, what we will do is at least frame out the norms and just that side discussion for you all to review, provide additional comment on as we move forward. And go from there. Does that sound fair? Yes? Okay, great. Let's talk about goal setting, because this ties into the project prioritization process, which is, again, one of our main purposes. Just click on that purpose slide. Yeah, perfect. Okay, this one's a less gobbledy, your purpose statement. Here's where everything gets interesting and jumbled. You're supposed to have a project prioritization process. We want that process to be equitable. We want everyone to be informed as we move through that project prioritization process. And those are generally what we're attempting to do, right? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Not like. However, you have your purpose statement that you're working off of, and this was through legislation as the TPRs were developed. Like, this is where this comes from. And we touched on it when we started this slideshow. But there's a lot of other goals and other things happening here in the region that I want to run through really quickly. So if you'll hop to the next slide. Okay, these are your Intermountain Transit goals. And this is adapted from the 2020 Coordinated Public Transit Human Services Plan for this Intermountain region. So you have your purpose statement of your IMTPR. And then you have your Intermountain Transit goals. I am not going to read off of all of this. I promise you we will share these with you, but they are adapted from your plan. And then the next slide, Dana. And then you have your vision for your Intermountain 2045 Regional Transportation Plan. Okay, so we've got our purpose, got some transit goals, we've got a vision for a regional transportation plan for 2045. And then after that, you've got actual goals on the next two slides for your Intermountain 2045 Regional Transportation Plan. That's a lot of information that you all are working off of just for this region. So you've got your longer range transportation plan, you've got your coordinated transit plan, you've got everything going on at CDOT, you've got your purpose of this, and then the next slide, Dana, has your Colorado Transportation Commission guiding principles. It's a lot of things that are being thrown at you right now, and I mean this all purposefully. Next slide, Dana. Then, based on your Colorado Transportation Commission guiding principles, you all, as IMTPR, in your 2045 plan, set your regional priorities. Safety, mobility, economic vitality, asset management, strategic nature. So that's all from 2045. And then we're supposed to be developing or working through a project prioritization process. But we can't do that unless we set some clear-cut goals for what that process is going to be, which is another set of goals. This is already a lot of information. You see where I'm going with this? Yep. Okay, next slide. So what I did is I took all of those last few slides of vision, purpose, goals, and all the things. And I took out all of the junk words like is, are, the, of, and threw it into this word mashup cloud for you all to see. This is what was repeated over and over and over again for Intermountain. Environmental, economic, multimodal, needs, transit, enhance. You can see the ones that are popping out. So it was kind of an exercise for you all to say, this is what we are hearing, but does this even ring true? Does this ring true for you all? Do your heads feel like they're about to explode? Mine did after I was reading through all of that. There's a lot of information. Thoughts?
Feel like that.
Yeah. Yeah. What were you saying?
Safety was the one that jumped out to us.
Safety?
Well, we're all about safety, but it wasn't to be a bigger.
Wow. Yeah, and I didn't tinker with your keywords at all, with the amount of times that they were named.
So we not all.
Well, and I think Michelle had a really fair point about the dysfunction of it all. Sometimes I look at these things and I was even trying to sort out in my head, what are we doing here? And I'm facilitating you all. So I'm your facilitator. And this is confusing to me. I can only imagine how some of you new folks feel that haven't been here for a decade. What else do you see? Where are we feeling right now? Yeah,
I think these are deceiving. You go back to the other slide, safety was first, the other slide, that safety was first, the other slide before that, safety was up top. Just because the word doesn't show up very many times, doesn't mean it wasn't the top thing on every single one of the lists.
it's a really good
I think
point.
those are sort of deceiving when you do that.
Yeah. Oh, I know, but you know, it was one of those like exercises in what's popping up the most. Doesn't mean it's not important. So then, if I can have you do your own word salad, Dana, can you just add a new slide or take notes while we go through this next? Just give me, I'm gonna just go around the room. Give me your top word. Yes, it'll be safety. If someone's already said it, maybe we say something different. What's your top word?
That's what I think.
It's inherent in what you're doing. So safety. What? Yep.
Regard to goals.
Yeah, for goals. Like if we were to have a theme for goal setting, in addition to safety, what else would it be? Asset? Time? Money?
Equity.
Equity.
How could be mobility?
Mobility is a big one. But I already told you why I'm passionate about that. What else?
Tom, I was gonna say mobility, like, I think that's the kind of. A lot of people hear mobility and they just think, for instance, I think we're 100 of that. I do think we are still moving. In people, movement of goods. Whether that's buses, cars, bicycles. I think that's what we're really trying to focus. Some people moving for. Needs efficiency.
So movement,
That's
yeah.
where I'm at with mobility. We're about using with transportation. How do we get our body there? That's.
And I also would, if I can, add in the word access, because whether I'm walking or I'm on a bike, or I'm in my car or in a bus, I want to be able to access places too. Aesthetically speaking. What other, I see some of y'all itching. What else?
Sustainability
Sustainability?
covers environmental, economic, and equity.
Yeah. Carol?
This last conversation points out that if you see people there, it's really all about people needs.
Yeah. What else? Connectivity?
So let's see.
Huge. Yeah, it's an unfortunate lesson to learn. But important. So what else? Transparency. I mean, as government officials, how often do you get raked over the coals because people are calling you out, feeling like you're not being transparent, even though you're trying to do just that? Did you guys attend CMA this week? When y'all did? Any other words that we feel like just must be included?
Yeah.
Yes, Carol.
Local advocacy.
Local advocacy. Okay. So.
I'm gonna check
Go
with
ahead.
people online.
Go ahead.
Does anyone online have
Oh, yeah.
words that they want to add to what our shared goals will be?
Funded,
Funding,
funded.
funded.
What was I hearing? Partnership. Partnership. Yes. Economic vitality, quality of life is a good one too, especially for your citizens. So I'm gonna pause us here because not only I think our brains melting out of our ears and we're tired, but there's no way we can possibly get through the goal setting activity that we need to do to move forward. So that will be part of our next process. What I will do is go work with Dana. I'm gonna take your word salad back and start framing out some potential goals for your project prioritization process. I will commit to you that we will not only provide your meeting norms and these draft goals to you before your next meeting, but in enough time for you to sit and stew about them and love them or hate them when an offer changes. And we will continue the discussion to be able to do that, because ultimately you do want to have an equitable project prioritization process that reflects all of the needs of your region, not just the I-70s of the world, but things that matter to your community. So we will keep moving forward on this. I'm sorry we didn't have more time today, but I also appreciate your attentiveness and ability to participate. This is a really great group. I enjoy hearing all of your comments and thoughts because you all have valuable feedback to provide. So I'm gonna turn it back over to Brian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah, thank you all for coming today. It's a great turnout. I really appreciate how engaged everything was, especially in the bylaw. That stuff was dry, it's pretty difficult, and it's like we're supposed to be right on top of it. Thanks for that. We will.
It's better than reading this textbook.
I think from a next step standpoint, what I'd like to do is get Meredith and Dana figure out if this is something we could dovetail into the next meeting. If we can do it that way, that seems like the best, most efficient way to handle it. So we'll let you know. We'll know what's the magnitude of timing, what's the need for that. Before we close, though, I want to find out if we have an update from Jason and Mark has an update regarding with
Jason's still on. Jason first.
Jason, do you want to go ahead and give some updates on behalf of CDOT? Cottonwood Pass? The bridge, Highway 50 in Gunnison. If you're talking, Jason, you're muted. He's there, but he's muted.
So we have a new grant issue came up, raised grants. The deadline is May 1st. CDOT and Eagle County have worked out a deal to separate out the grant for Cottonwood Pass and Glenwood Springs. Eagle County is going to apply for Cottonwood Pass. We're going to apply for rail and improvements in Glenwood Canyon and not Glenwood Springs, Glenwood Canyon. So we're separating that out, and with all the discussion about competing grant, that's why I pulled Eagle County. I just want to make sure we're on the same page because we will be requesting a letter of support. And just thought I'd bring it up because we kept talking about it. The more we talked about it, the more nervous I got.
A letter of support for both.
For both.
Okay.
Yes. And you guys did support the one grant when we applied for it, but now we're just breaking it up into hopefully getting a better chance to get something.
Any questions, Mark? How much is the Eagle County facility request for?
I don't know.
I don't know the term exactly.
Yeah, I think 20 some just,
And that's dedicated primarily to Blue Hill.
Mark, could you say the story? It's MPTG, I mean, they come up with, they rushed the deadline because there's been so many that have not been awarded and so that was the. Yeah, these grants, so just, they had a really quick turnaround time.
So Mark on the Blue Hill, so everybody got this idea in their mind, but I've always knows that they're closed all winter. So start that grant November 1st, 0 cost expendable, that's just closed. So, and you get a lot of bang for the buck. So
Gary, I don't control a lot of.
no, I just heard everybody in the room. Animal.
Yeah, I took my 2 million.
Okay.
Closing the road down.
Jason, are you there? Do you want to give updates? Jason Smith? Bueller? Okay. He's probably doing something right now, so.
Well, what we can, well, this is what will happen when this happens, we're not together. I'll just say, is anybody opposed? You are supporting them.
That's just like what I did with Town of Parachute and Town of Minturns. Mhm.
You'll see in the packet, there are elements of support for, I think, in terms of that.
Yeah, we included what you all were, nobody said anything. That we sent letters of support for the raise grants.
Anything else in closing? Sure. Thank you.
All in favor, stand up. Thanks, everybody online.